This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Ibisa, A Game of Thrones. Book of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin.
And there was nothing there. Nothing. Then the whistle cutted. Then go in the spit at her, and do not touch me. Next, Edda, they have found her, my lord. Ned rose quickly. Our men, or Lannister, it was Jory, his T-War. Veon Poe replied, she's not been armed. Thank the God. Ned said, his men have been searching for Arya for 4 days. Now, but the queen's men have been out hunting as well. Where she is, tell Jory to bring her here at once. I am sorry, my lord. People told him the guards on the gate were Lannister's men, and they informed the queen when Jory brought her in. She's being taken directly before the king. Then that woman, Ned said, striding to the door, find Sansa and bring her to the audience. Shamba, a voice will be needed. He descended the tower step in a red rage. He had Ned Searchers himself for the first 3 days, and had scarcely slept an hour since Arya had disappeared. This morning he had been so heartsick and weary he could scarcely stand, but now his fury was on him. Filling him with strength, men called out to him as he crossed the castle yard, but Ned ignored them in his estate. He would have run, but he was still the king's hand, and the hand must keep his dignity. He was aware of the eyes that followed him, of the muttering voice wondering what he would do. The castle was in modest holding a half-day ride south of the Trident. The royal party had made themselves the uninvited guests of his lord. Sir Raymond Darry, while the hunt for Arya and the Busher was conducted on both sides of the river. They were not welcome visitors. Sir Raymond lived under King's peace, but his family had fought beneath Rhaegar's dragon banner at the Trident, and his 3 older brothers had died there. A troop leader, Robert, nor Sir Raymond had forgotten with King's men. Darry men, Lannister men, and Stark men all crammed into a castle far too small for them. Tension burned hot and heavy. The king had appropriated Sir Raymond's audience chamber, and that was where Ned found them. The room was crowded when he burst in. Too crowded, he thought left alone, he and Robert might have been able to settle the matter amicably. Robert was slumped in Darry's high seat at the far end of the room, his face closed and solemn. Cassia Lannister and her son stood beside him. The queen had her hand on Joffrey's shoulder. Thick silken bondage still covered the boy's arm. Arya stood in the center of the room, alone, but for Jory Casey, every eye upon her. Arya and Ned called loudly. He went to her, his boots ringing on the stone floor. When she saw him, she cried out and began to sob. Ned went to one knee and took her in his arm. She was shaking. I am sorry. She robbed. I am sorry, I know. He said. She felt so tiny in his arm, nothing but a scrawny little girl. It was hard to see her. She had caused so much trouble. Her heart. No, her face was dirty, and her tears left pinky track down her cheek. Hungry son, I ate some berries, but there was nothing else. We will feed you soon enough. Ned promised. He rose to face the king. What is the meaning of this? His eyes swept the room, searching for friendly face, but for his own men, they were few enough. Sir Raymond Darry guarded his look. Well, Lord recently wore a half for friend face, but for his own men, they were few enough. Sir Raymond
that regarded his look well. Lord really wore a half smile that might mean anything, and old Sir Barrister was grave. The rest were Lannister's men and hostile. Their only good fortune was that both Jaime Lannister and Sandon Clegane were missing, leading Sessionot of the Trident. Why was I not told that my daughter had been found? Ned demanded, his voice ringing. Why was she not brought to me at once? He spoke to Robert, but it was Kessia Lannister who answered. How dare you speak to your king in that manner? And that the king stared. Quiet, woman. He snapped, he straightened in his seat. I am sorry, Ned, I never meant to frighten the girl. It seems best to bring her here and get the business done with quickly. And what business is that? Ned put ice in the voice. The queen stepped forward. You know full well, Stark, the girl of yours, attacked my son. And Busha boy, that animal of ours, tried to tear him arms off. That's not true, Arya said loudly. She just beat him a little. He was hurting Mika. Joff told us what happened. The queen said, you and the Busha boy beat him with club while you set your wolf on him. That's not how it was, Arya said, close to tears again. Ned put a hand on her shoulder. Yes, it is. Prince Joffrey insisted. They all attacked me, and she threw Lion, took in the rivers. Ned noticed that he did not so much as glance at Arya as he spoke. Liar, Arya yelled. Shut up! The prince yelled back. Enough! The king's roar rising from the seat. His voice thick with irritation. Silence fell. He glowed at Arya through his thick beard. Now, child, you will tell me what happened. Tell it all and tell it true. It is a great crime to lie to the king. Then he looked over at his son. When she is done, you will have your tongue until then. Hold your tongue, as Arya began her story. Ned heard the door open behind him. He glanced back and saw Veyon Pole enter with Sansa. They stood quietly at the back of the hall as Arya spoke. When she got to the part where she threw Joffrey's sword into the middle of the trident, Renly Baratheon began to laugh. Bristle, Sir Barrister escorted my brother from the hall before he showed. Lord Raleigh stifled his laughter. My brother is too kind. I can find the door myself. He bowed to Joffrey. Pashas, later you will tell me how a 9-year-old girl the size of a wheat rat managed to disarm you with a broom handed and throw your sword in the river. As the door swung shut behind him, Ned heard him say, Lion's tooth, and go far once more. Prince Joffrey was pale as he began his very different version of the day. When his son was done talking, the king rose heavily from his seat, looking like a man who wanted to be anywhere but here. What in all the 7M am I supposed to make of this? He says one thing, she says another. They were not the only ones present. Ned said, Sansa, come here. Ned had heard her version of the story. The night Arya had vanished, he knew the truth. Tell us what happened. His eldest daughter stepped forward hesitantly. She was dressed in blue velvet, tripped with white, a silver chain around her neck. Her thick auburn hair had been brushed until it shone. She blinked at her sister, then at the young prince. I do not know, she said tearfully, looking as though she wanted to boast. I do not remember everything happened so far. I did not see you rotting, Arya straight She fled at her sister like an arrow, knocking Sansa down to the ground, pummeling her. Liar, 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 Arya, stop it! Ned shouted, Jory, pull her off her. Kicking Sansa was pale and shaking as Ned lifted her back to her feet. Are you hurt? He asked, but she was staring at Arya, and she did not seem to hear. The girl is as wide as that filthy animal of ours. Cassia Lannister said, Robert, I want her punished. 7 hells, Robert swore. Cassia, look at her. She's a child. What to do her? You do. Whip her through the street. Damn it. Children fight. It's over. No lasting harm was done. The queen was furious. Joff would carry those scares for the rest of his life. Robert Baratheon looked at his eldest son. So he will perhaps they will teach him a lesson. Let's see that your daughter is disciplined. I will do the same with my son. Gladly, your grace, Ned said with vast relief. Robert started to walk away. Then the queen was knocked down. And what of the dire wolf? She called after him. What of the beast that savaged your son? The king stopped, turned back, frowned. I didn't forget about the dead wolf. Ned could see Arya's hands in Jory's arm. Jory spoke up quickly. We found no trace of dire wolf. Your grace. Robert did not look unhappy. No, so be it. The queen raised her voice. 100 golden dragons to the man who bring me its skin. A costly pair. Robert grumbled. I want no part of this woman. You can damn well buy your fall with Lannister gold. The queens regarded him coolly. I had no thought you so legally. The king did not thought to wed would have laid a wolf skin across my bed before the sun went down. Robert's face darkened with anger. That would be a fine show. Without a wolf, we have a wolf. Cassia Lannister said. Her voice was very quiet, but her green eyes shone with triumph. It took them all a moment to comprehend her words, but when they did, the king shrugged irritably. As you will, I have said seriously to say, Robert, you cannot mean this. Ned protested. The king was in no mood for more argument. Enough, Ned, I will hear no more. A dire wolf is a savage beast. Sooner or later, it would have turned on you. Get the same way the other did on my son. Get I done. She will be happier for it. That was when Sansa finally seemed to comprehend. Her eyes were frightened as they went to her father. It does not mean lady. Does he? She saw the truth on his face. No, she said. No, not lady. Lady did not bite anybody. She's good. Lady was not there. Arya shouted angrily. You leave her alone. Stop them. Sansa pleaded. Do not let them do it. Please, please. It was not lady. It was Nimria. Arya did it. You cannot. It was not lady. Don't let them hurt lady. I will make her be good. I promise, I promise. She started to cry. All Ned could do was take her in his arm and hold her while she wept. He looked across the room at Robert, his old friend closer than any brother. Please, Robert, for the love you bear me, for the love you bear my sister, please. The king looked at them for a long moment, then turned his eyes on his wife. Damn you, Cassia, he said with reluctance. Ned stood gently, disengaging himself from Sansa's grasp. All the weariness of the past 4 days had returned to him. Do it yourself then, Robert, he said in a voice cold and sharp as steel. At least have the courage to do it yourself. Robert looked at Ned with flat, dead eyes and left without a word. His footsteps heavy as lead. Silence filled the hall. Here is the dire wolf, Cassia Lannister asked, when her husband was gone beside her. Prince Joffrey was smiling. The beast is chained up outside the gatehouse.
your grace. Barrister Samuel answered reluctantly, sent from Pale. No, Ned, said Jory. Take the girl back to their room and bring me ice. The word tasted of peel in his throat, but he forced them out. If it must be done, I will do it. Cassia Lannister regarded him suspiciously. You Stark, is this some trick? Why would you do such a thing? They were all staring at him, but it was Sansa look that caught. She is of the north. She deserved better than a busher. He left the room with his eyes burning and his daughter's wails echoing in his ears, and found the direwolf pop where they chained her. Ned sat beside her for a while. Lady, he said, tasting the name. He had never paid much attention to the names of the children had picked, but looking at her now, he knew that Sansa had chosen well. She was the smallest of the litter, the prettiest, the most gentle and trusting. She looked at him with bright golden eyes, and he ruffled her thick grey form. Shortly, Jory brought him ice. When it was over, he said, choose 4 men and have golden eyes, and ruffle her. Choose 4 men, then take the body north, bury at Winterfell. All that way. Jerry said, astonished. All that way? Ned affirmed the Lannister woman shall never have this skin. He was walking back to the tower to give himself up to sleep at last, when Sandon Clegane and his rider came pounding through the castle gate, back from their hunt. There was something slung over the back of his destroyer, a heavy sharp rap in a bloody claw. No sign of your daughter, and he unwraps down that the day was not wholly wasted. We got our little pet. He reached back and shoved the body off, and it fell with a thorn in front of Ned's bending. Ned pulled back to the claw, dreading the wood he would have to find for Arya. But it was not Nimria after all. It was the Busher boy. Micah, his body covered in dry blood. He had been cut almost in half from shoulder to waist by some terrible blow struck from above. You rode him down, Ned said. The Hunt's eyes seemed to glitter through the steel of that Indian dog head. He ran, he looked at Ned, face and laughed, but not very fast. Next, Bran. It seems as though it had been falling for years. Flied, a voice whispered in the darkness, but Bran did not know how to fly. To all he could do was fall. Master Louis made a little ball of clay, baked him till he was hard and brittle, dressed him in Bran's cloth and flogged him off a roof. Bran remembered the way he shattered. But I never fall, he said, falling. The ground was so far below him, he could barely make it out through the grey mist that whirled around him. But he could feel how fast he was falling, and he knew what was waiting for him down there. Even in dream, he could not fall forever. He would wake up in the instant before he hit the ground. He knew you always woke up in the instant before you hit the ground, and if you do not, the voice asked the ground was closer now, still far away, 1,000 miles away, but closer than it had been. It was cold here in the darkness. There was no sun, no star, only the ground below coming up to smash him, and the grey mist and the whispering voice. He wanted to cry, not cry. Fly, I cannot fly. Bran said, I cannot. How do you know? Have you ever tried the voice? Was I an
thin. Brown looked around to see where it was coming from. A crown was spiraling down with him, just out of reach. Following him as he fell. "Help me," he said. "I am trying," the crown replied. "Say, got any corn?" Brown reached into his pocket as darkness pulled dizzily around him. When he pulled his hand out, golden candles slid from between his fingers into the air. They fell with him. The crown landed on his hand and began to eat. "Are you really a crown?" Brown asked. "Are you really falling?" The crown asked back. "It's just a dream." Brown said, "It is." Asked the crown. "I will wake up when I hit the ground." Brown told the bird, "You will die when you hit the ground." The crown said it will back to its corn. Brown looked down. He could see mountains now, the peak white with snow, and the silver thread of rivers. In that wood, he closed his eyes and began to cry. That would not do any good. The crown said, "I told you, the answer is flying, not crying. How hard can it be?" "I am doing it." The crown took to the air and flapped around Brown's hand. "You have wings," Brown pointed out. "Maybe you do too." Brown felt along his shoulder, groping for feathers. "There are different kinds of wings," the crown said. Brown was staring at him. His arm, his leg, he was so skinny, just stretched taut over bones. Had he always been so thin? He tried to remember. A face swam up at him out of the grey mist, shining with light. "Golden, the things I do for love," it said. Brown screamed. The crown threw to the hair, cowling not that it shriek at him. "Forget that you do not need it now." But it set aside, put it away. He landed on Brown's shoulder and pecked at him, and the shining golden face was gone. Brown was falling faster than ever. The grey mist howled around him as he plucked towards the earth below. "What are you doing to me?" he asked the crown, tearful. "Teaching you how to fly." "I cannot fly." "You are flying tight now." "I am falling. Every flight begins with a fall." The crown said, Look down, I am afraid." "Look down." Brown looked down and felt his inside turn to water. The ground was rushing up at him. Now the whole world was spread out below him, a tapestry of white and brown and green. He could see everything so clearly that for a moment he forgot to be afraid. He could see the whole realm and everyone in it. He saw Winterfell as the eagle sees it, the tall tower looking squat and stubby from above, the castle wall just lying in the dirt. He saw Master Lewin on his balcony, studying the sky through a polished bronze tube and frowning as he made note in a book. He saw his brother Rob, taller and stronger than he remembered him, practicing swordplay in the yard with Ray still in his hand. He saw Onda, the simple giant from the starwood, crying and having to make it fall, lifting in onto his shoulder as easily as another man might hold a bale of ale. At the arc of the gospel, the great white wirewood brought over its reflection in the black pool. It leaves rustling in a child wind. When it felt Brown watching, he lifted its eyes from the still water and stared back at him. Knowingly, he looked east and saw a gala racing across the water of the bait. He saw his mother sitting alone in a cabin, looking at a blood-stained knife on a table in front of her as a rower pulled out their oars and Sir Roderick leaned across a rail, shaking and having. A storm was gathering ahead of them, a vast dark rolling lashed by lightning, but somehow they could not see it. He looked south and saw the gathering ahead of them.
a vast dark roaring like by lightning, that somehow they could not see it. He looked sad and saw the great blue-green rush of the trading. He saw his father pleading with the king, his face etched with grief. He saw Sansa crying herself to sleep at night, and he saw Arya watching in silence and holding her secret hand in her heart. There were shoulders all around them. One shadow was dark as ash, with the terrible face of a fawn of a fawn. Another was armored like the sun, golden and beautiful. Over them both looked a giant in armor made of stone. That when he opened his visor, there was nothing inside but darkness and thick black blood. He lifted his eyes and saw clear across the narrow sea to the free cities and the green Dothraki sea and beyond. So Verdarak under its mountains to the fabled land of the Jades. To Asher by the shadows, yet dragons stared beneath the sunrise. Finally looked north, he saw the walls shining like blue crystal, and his bastard brother just sleeping alone in a cold bed, his skin growing pale and heard as the memories of all warmth fled from him. And he looked past the wall, past endless forest, claw in snow, past the frozen shore and the great blue white rivers of ice, and the dead plains, there nothing grew or lived. North and north and north he looked to the curtain of light at the end of the world, and then beyond that curtain he looked deep into the heart of winter, and then he cried out, afraid, and the heat of his tears burned on his cheek. Now you know, the crown whispered as it sat on his shoulder. Now you know why you must leave. Why Bran said, not understanding, falling. Because winter is coming. Bran looked at the crown on his shoulder, and the crown looked back. It had 3 eyes, and the third eyes was full of terrible knowledge. Bran looked down. There was nothing below him now but snow and cold and death. A frozen wasteland, yet jaggers, blue-white, spires of ice waited to embrace him. They flew up at him like spears. He saw the bones of 1,000 other dreamers impaled upon their point. He was desperately afraid. Can a man still be brave if he is afraid? He heard his own voice saying, small far away, and his father's voice replied to him, that's the only time a man can be brave. Now, this is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Igbesa, A Game of Thrones. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Igbesa, A Game of Thrones. Book of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin. Bran, the crown urged, choose, fly or die. Death reached for him. Screaming Bran spread his arm and flew. Wings unseen drank the wind and filled and pulled him upward. The terrible needle of ice descended below him. The sky opened up above. Bran swore it was better than climbing. It was better than anything. The world grew small beneath him. I am flying, he cried out in delight. I have noticed, said the 3 eyes crown. He took to the air, flapping its wings in his face, slowing him, bleating him. He farted in the air, forehead between his eyes. What are you doing? He shrieked. The crown opened its beak and cowed at him. A shriek scream of fear, and the green mist shredded and swept around him and ripped away like a wave. And he saw that the crown was really a woman, a serving woman with long black hair, and he knew her from somewhere, from Winterfell. Yes, that was it. He remembered her now. And then he realized that he was in Winterfell, in a bad eye, in some shitty tower room, and the black-haired woman dropped a basin of water to shelter on the floor and ran down the steps shouting, "He's awake! He's awake! He's awake!" Bran touched his forehead between his eyes. The place where the crown had pecked him was still burning, but there was nothing there, no blood, no wound. He felt weak and dizzy. He tried to get out of bed, but nothing happened. And then there was movement beside the bed, and something fell weak, and something landed slightly on his leg. He felt nothing. A pair of yellow eyes looked into his own, shining like the sun. The window was open, and it was cold in the room, but the warmth that came off the wolf enfolded him like a hot bath. He spoke. Bran realized all was it. He was so big now. He reached out to pet him, his hand trembling like a leaf, when his brother Robb burst into the room, breathless from his dash up the tower step. The dire wolf was licking Bran's face. Bran looked up calmly. "His name is Summer," she said. "Nest, Catelyn. We will make King's Landing within the hour." Catelyn turned away from the rail and forced herself to smile. "Your omen have done well by us, Captain. Each of them shall have a silver stag as a token of my gratitude." Captain Morrell turned his favored eye with a half-bow. "You are far too generous, Lady Stark. The honor of carrying a great lady like yourself is all the reward they need. That they will take the silver anyway." Mara smiled as she said. He spoke the common tongue fluently, with only the slightest hint of a Tyroshi accent. He'd been plying the narrow sea for 30 years, he told her, as Oman, quartermaster, and finally captain of his own trending. Galley, the storm dancer, was his fourth ship, and his fasting, a two-masted galley of 60 old. She had certainly been the fastest of the ship available in White Harbor when Catelyn and Sir Broderick Kelsey had arrived after the headlong gallop down downright rivers. The Tyroshi were notorious for their barbarians, and Sir Roderick had argued for hiring a fishing sloop out of the Three Sisters. But Catelyn had insisted on galley. It was that she had two winds had been against them much of the voyage, and without the valley hopes they did be beaten there, where they are beating their way past the fingers, instead of skimming towards King's Landing and Johnny, and so close. She thought beneath the line bandage her fingers still throbbed with the dagger had beaten. The pain was her scorn. Catelyn felt lest she forget she could not bend the last two fingers on her left hand, and the other would never again be disturbed. Yet that was a small enough price to pay for Bran's life. Sir Roderick chose that moment to appear on deck. "My good friend," said L'Oreal, through his first grin bears, the Tyroshin love breathed color, even in their facial hair. "It is so fine to see you looking better." "Yes," Sir Roderick agreed. "I have wanted to die for almost 2 days now." He bowed to Catelyn. "My lady," he was looking better, a shade thinner than he had been when they set out from White Harbor, but holding himself again. The strong wind in the beat and the roughness of the narrow sea had not agreed with him, and he did almost gone over the side when the storm ceased there unexpectedly. Of dragon stone, yet somehow he had clung to a rope until 3 of Morion's men could rescue him and carry him safely. below deck. The captain was just telling me that our voyage is almost at an end. She said. Sir Roderick managed a weary smile. So soon? He looked old without his great white side. Sweeter, smaller somehow, less fierce, and 10 years older. Yet back on the bight, it had seemed prudent to submit to a crewman razor after his whisker had become hopeless before for the third time, while he leaned over the rail and reached into the swingly wind. I will leave you to discuss your business, Captain Morris said. He bowed and took his leave of them. The galley skimmed the water like a dragonfly, her hopes rising and falling in perfect time. Sir Roderick heard the trail and looked out over the passing shore. I have not been the most valiant of proprietors. Captain touched his arm. We are here, Sir Roderick, and safely. That is all that truly matters. Her hands grouped beneath her claw, her fingers stiff and fumbling. The dagger was still at her side. She found she had to touch it now and then to reassure herself. Now we must reach the king's master at arms and pray that he can be trusted. Sir Aaron Staggered is a vain man, but an honest one. Sir Roderick Ann went to his face to stroke his whisker and discovered once again that they were gone. He looked nonplussed. He may know the blade. Yes, but my lady, the moment we got ashore, we are at risk, and there are those at court who will know you are on his side. Captain Matt grew tight. Little finger, she murmured. His face swam up before her. A boy face, he thought was a boy no longer. His father had died several years before, so he was Lord Baelish now. Yet still they called him Little Finger. Our brother Headmore had given him that name long ago at Rivron, his family modest holding here on the smallest of the finger, and Percy had been slight and short for his age. Sir Roderick cleared his throat. Lord Baelish once, his thoughts strayed off uncertainly in search of the polite word. Kathleen was past delicacy. He was my father's ward. We grew up together in Rivron. I thought of him as a brother, but his feeling for me were more than brotherly. When it was announced that I was to wed Brandon Stark, Percy's challenge for the right to my hand, it was madness. Brandon was 20, Patton scarcely 15. I had to beg Brandon to spare Percy's life. He let him off with his car. Afterward, my father sent him away. I have not seen him since. She lifted her face to the spray as if the brisk wind could blow the memories away. He wrote to me, Rivron, after Brandon was killed, that I burned the letter unread. But then I knew that Ned would marry me in his brother's place. Sir Roderick fingered fimbles once again for non-existing whisker. Little finger sit on the small console now. I knew he would rise high. Kathleen said it was always clever even as a boy. But it is one thing to be clever and another to be wise. I wonder what the years have done to him. I overheard the far eyes sang out from the ringing. Captain Moran came scrabbling across the deck, giving orders, and all around them the storm dancer burst into frantic and activity as King Landing slid into view atop its 3 high hills. 300 years ago, Kathleen knew those high had been covered with frost, and only a handful of fisher folks had lived on the north shore of the Blackwater Rush when the deep, swift river flowed into the sea. Then Aegon the Conqueror had sailed from Dragonstone. It was here that his army had put ashore, and there on the highest hill that he built his first crude redoubts of wood and earth. Now the city covered the shore as far as Catlin could see. Manses and harbor are granaries, brick storehouses and timber, inn and merchant stock, taverns and graveyard are brothers, all piled one on another. She could hear the glamour of the fish market even at this distance. Between the building were broad roads lined with trees, wandering crop-back trees and alley so narrow that two men could not walk abreast. Venisa Hill was crowned by the great desert of Balaam, with its 7 crystal towers. Across the city on the hills of Renes stood the blackened walls of the Dragon Pit, its huge dome collapsing into ruin, its brazen doors closed now for a century. The street of the sister ran between them, straight as an arrow. The city wall rose in distance, high strong. 100 quays lined the waterfront, and the harbor was crowded with ships. Deeper water fishing boats and river runners came and 100 quays came and went. Ferryman pulled back, fought across the black water. Rush trading galley unloaded goods from gravels and cantors, and Lies Catlin spilled the queen on a bench tied up beside a fat Valiant wander from the port of Eden. It all black with tar, while upriver a dozen named golden warship rested in their crib. Say Fuller and Craig. Iron ran lapping at the water, and above it all, frowning down from Aegon high hills, was the red keep, 7 huge drunk towers crowned with iron ramparts and immense green barbican, vaulted hall and covered bridges, barrack and dungeons and granaries, massive curtain walls sodding with archers, nest, all fashion of pale red stone. Aegon the Conqueror had commanded it built. His son Magon the Cruel had seen it completed. Afterward, he takes the head of every stone mansion, wood workers and builders who had labored on it. Only the blood of the dragon would ever know the secret of the fortress the dragon had built. He vowed, yet now the banner that flew from its bosom were golden, not black. And where the 3-headed dragon had once breathed fire, now crashed the crowned stag of Ask Baratheon, a high-masted sword ship from the summer as it was beaten up from port, its white sail huge with wings. The storm dancer moved past it, pulling steadily for shore. My lady Sir Roderick said, I have thought on how best to proceed. While I lay away, you must not enter the castle, and go in your stead, and bring Sir Aaron to you in some safe place. She studied the old knight as the galley drew near to a peace. Moria was shouting in the vagar barrier of great cities. You would be as much at risk as I would. Sir Roderick smiled. I think not. I look at my reflection in the water area and scarcely recognize myself. My mother was the last person to see me without mystery, and she is 40 years dead. I believe I am safe enough, my lady. Moria below a command as 160 lifted from the river, then reversed and backed water. The gala slow. Another shoot. The oars slide back inside the oars as they turn against the dock. Taroshi, Sinet
lead down to tie up. Morion came bustling up. All smiled. King Slade, my lady, as you did command, and never had a ship made a swifter, a surer passage. Will you be needing assistance to carry your team to the castle? We should not be going to the castle. Perhaps you can suggest an inn, someplace clean and comfortable and not too far from the river. The Taroshi finger his folks' green bed, just so I know of several establishments that might suit your needs. Yet first, I may be so bold. There is this matter of the second half of the payment we agreed upon, and of course, the extra silver you were so kind as to promise. 60 stags, I believe it was, for the almonds. For the almonds, Captain reminded him, oh, of a certainty, said Morion, though perhaps I should hold it for them until we return to Taroshi. For the sake of their wives and children, if you give them the silver here, my lady, they will die in ways or expect it all for a night. Pleasure. There are worse things to spend money on. Sir Roderick put in, winter is coming. A man must make his own choice. Captain said they earn the silver. How they spend it is no concern of mine. As you say, my lady Moro replies, bowing and smiling just to be sure. Captain paid the homage as if he staged to each man, and a copper to the two men who carried their chest halfway up Vesia, he to the inn that Morian had suggested it was a rumbling old place, alley. The woman who won it was a soul crown with a wandering eye who looked them over suspiciously and picked the coin that Captain offered to make sure it was real. Our rooms were large and airy, though and moreover sworn that our first stew was the most savory in all the 7 kingdoms. Best of all, she had no interest in their lives. I think it's best if you stay away from the uncommon room. Sir Roderick said, after they had settled in, even in a place like this, one never knows who will be watching. He wore ringmail, dagger and long sword under a dark cloth with a hook he could pull up over his head. I will be back before nightfall with Sir Aaron. He promised. Rest now, my lady. Kathleen was tired. The voyage had been long and fatiguing, and she was no longer as young as she had been. Her window opened on the alley and rooftop, with a view of the black water beyond. She watched as Roderick set off, striding briskly through the bushy street until he was lost in the crowd. Then decided to take his advice. The bedding was tough, with straw instead of feather, but she had no trouble falling asleep. She woke to a pounding on her door. Kathleen sat up sharply. Outside the window, the rooftop of King's Landing were red in the light of the setting sun. She had slept longer than she intended. A first hammer at her door again, and a voice called her, opened the name of the king. A moment she called her, she wrapped herself in it. A moment she called her, she wrapped herself in her cloak. The dagger was in its bedside table. She snatched it up before the unlatched the heavy wooden door. The men who pushed into the room were the black ridgemen and golden claw.
The city watched. Their leader smiled at the danger in her hand and said, "No need for that. Lord, we are to escort you to the castle."
This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Ibisa, A Game of Thrones. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Ibisa, A Game of Thrones. Book of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. By whose authority, she said, he showed her a ribbon. Catherine felt her breath catch in her throat. The sea was a mockingbird in grey wax. "Petty," she said. "Soon, so soon? Something must have happened to Sir Roderick." She looked at the head guardsman. "Do you know who I am?" "No, I am lady," he said. "I am Lord." The little finger said only to bring you to him and see that you are here not mistreated. Catherine nodded. You may wait outside while I dress." She bathed her hands in the basin and wrapped them in clean line. Her fingers were thick and awkward as she struggled to lace up her bodice and knock a drop broke claw about her neck. How could Littlefinger have known she was here? Sir Roderick would never have told him. Oh, he might be, but he was stubborn and loyal to a fault, yet they too late. And the Lannister reached King Landing before her. No, if that were true, Ned would be here too, and surely he would have come to her. How? Then she thought, Mario the Tarosian knew who they were and where they were. Damn him! She hoped he got a good price for the information they had brought a horse for her. The lamb were being light along the street as they set out, and Catherine felt the eyes of the city on her as she rode, surrounded by the guards in their golden claw. When they reached the Red Keep, the couriers was down and the great gates sealed for the night. That the castle windows were alight with flickering light. The guardsmen left their mouth outside the walls and escorted her through a narrow postern door, then up endless steps to the tower. He was alone in the room, seated at a heavy wooden table, an oil lamp beside him as he rose. When she ushered her inside, he set down his pen and looked at her. "Cat," he said, quickly, "what have I been brought here in the fashion?" He rose and gestured brusquely to the guards. "Leave us, the men departed. We were not mistreated, I trust," he said after they had gone. I gave them instruction. He noticed her bondage. "Your hands," Kathleen ignored the implied question. "I am not accustomed to being somewhat like a serving wench," she said icily. "As a boy, you still knew the meaning of courtesy. Have I angered you, my lady? That was never my intent." He looked contrite. The look brought back vivid memories for Kathleen. He had been a sly child, but a small boy, but has been a small boy, and he had grown into a small man, an inch or two shorter than Kathleen, slender and quick, with the sharp future she remembered, and the same laughing grey eyes. He had a little pointed chill beard now, and threads of silver in his dark hair. Though he was still shy of 30, they went well with the silver mockingbird that fastened his cloak. Even as a child, he had always loved his silver. "How did you know I was in the city?" she asked him. Lord Weary knows all," Percy said with a sly smile. "We will be joining us shortly. But I wanted to see you alone first. It has been too long." "Cat, how many years?" Kathleen ignored his familiarity. There were more important questions, so it was the king's spider who found him. "Littlefinger wise, you don't want to call him that. He is very sensitive. Come of me and Enoch. I imagine nothing happens in this city without Weary knowing. Oftentimes he knows about it. before it happens. It has informed everywhere. His little birds, he calls them one of his little birds, heard about your visit. Thankfully, Mary came to me first. Why you? He shrugged. Why not me? I am master of coin, the king's own counselor. Selim and Lord Raleigh rode north to meet Robert, and Lord Stannis is gone to Dragonstone, leaving only Master Percy and me. I was the obvious choice. I was never a friend to your sister, Lancer. Very known that. Does Very knows about? But Varys knows everything, except why you are here. He lifted an eyebrow. Why are you here? The wife is allowed to learn from her husband, and if a mother needs her daughter clothes, who can tell her no? Littlefinger laughed. Oh, very good, my lady, but please, don't expect me to believe that. I know you too well. What were the truly words again? Her throat was dry. Family duty. Honor, she recited swiftly. He didn't know how to swear. Family duty, honor, he echoes, all of which requires you to remain in the Winterfell. Where her hand left you? No, my lady, something has happened. This sudden trip of yours does speak a certain urgency. I beg of you, let me help. Old sweet friend should never hesitate to rely upon each other. There was a soft knock on the door. Enter Littlefinger called out. The man the man he did not know her too well. Old sweet friend, the man who stepped through the door was plump, perfumed, powdered, and as hairless as an egg. He wore a vest of woven gold, thread over a loose gown, purple silk. On his feet were pointed slippers of soft velvet. Lady Stark, he said, taking her hand in both of his, to see you again after so many years is such a joy. His flesh was soft and moist, and his breath smelled of lilac. Oh, your poor hand, have you combed yourself? Sweet lady, the finger so delicate. Our good Master Percy makes a marvelous slave. Shall I send for a jar? Captain slid a finger from his grasp. I thank you, my lord, but my own master alone has already seen to my heart. Very bold with his head. I was grievous sad to hear about your son. And being as young, the girls are correct. Oh, that we agree, Lord Varys. She said the chapter was that a courtesy due him as a council member. Very was lord of nothing but the spider web, the master of none that is whispered. The eunuch spread his soft hand on more than that. I hope, sweet lady, I have great esteem for your husband. A new hand, and I know we do both love King Robert. Yes, she was forced to say, for certain never has a king been so beloved as our brother, as Robert. Quick Littlefinger, he smiled slyly, at least in Lord Varys' hearing. Good lady, Very said with great solicitude, there are men in the free cities with wondrous healing power, say only the word, and I will send for one for your dear Bran. Master Lewin is doing all that he can be done for Bran. She told him she would not speak of Bran, not yet, not with this man. She trusted Littlefinger only a little, and very not at all. She would not let them see her grieve. But Varys tell me that I have you to thank for bringing me here. Varys dimpled like a beautiful girl. Oh yes, I suppose I am guilty. I hope you forgive me. Kind lady, he eased himself down into his seat and put his hand together. I wonder if we might trouble you, so show us the dagger. Captain Stark stared at the eunuch in stone disbelief. It was a spider. She thought widely an encounter or worse. He knew things no one could possibly know. Unless, what have you done to Sir Roderick? She demanded. Littlefinger was lost. I feel rather like the knight who arrived at the battle without his lance. What dagger are we talking about? Who is Sir Roderick? Sir Roderick Castle is a master at arms at Winterfell. Wary informed him, I assure you, Lady Stark, nothing at all has been done to the good knight. He did call here early this
afternoon. He visited with Sir Aaron Santaga in the armory, and they talked of the setting dagger. About sunset, they left the castle together and walked to that dreadful hall where you were staying. They are still there, drinking in the common room, waiting for your return. Sir Roderick was very distressed to find you gone. How could you know all that? The whispering of little birds. Very said, smiling, I know things, sweet lady. That is the nature of my service. It's true, you don't have the dagger with you. Yes, Kathleen pulled it out from beneath her claw and threw it down on the table in the front of him. Yeah, perhaps little birds, well wished by the name of the man it belongs to, well lifted the knife with exaggerated delicacy and ran a tomb along its edge. Blood welled, and he leapt out a square and dropped the dagger back on the table. Carefully, Kathleen told him, it's sharp, nothing old and edged like a Valerian steel. Littlefinger said as the Barry sucked at his bleeding thumb and looked at Kathleen with solemn admission. Littlefinger etted the knife lightly in his hand, tested the grip, he flipped it in the air, cut it again with his other hand. Such sweet blade, such sweet balance. You want to find the owner? Is that the reason for this visit? You have no need of Sir Aaron for that, my lady. You should have come to me. And if I had, she said, what would you have told me? I would have told you that there was only one knife like this at King's Landing. He grabs the blade between thumbs and finger, fork over his shoulder and threw it across the room with a practiced flick of his wrist. He struck the door and bruised himself deep in the oak. Quivering with smile. Yours? It made no sense. Petty had not been at Winterfell until the tourney on Prince Joffrey name day. He said, crossing the room to wrench the dagger from the wood, I backed at Sir Jaime in the jousting along with half the court petty stitch grips made him look half a boy again. When Laura's tyrant unhorsed him, many of us became a streetful quarrel. Sir Jaime lost 100 golden dragons, the queen lost an emerald pardon, and I lost my knife and grace. But the winner kept the rest. Who? Kathleen demanded. A mouth dried with fears, a finger ash with remember pains. The Eve said Littlefinger's Lord weary washed her face. Tyrannista. Next, John the courtier drank the song of sword. Under black wool, boiled leather and nailed sweet trickled icy down John's chest as he pressed the attack. Grey stumbled backward, defending himself crossly. When he raised his sword, John went underneath it with a sweeping blow that brushed against the back of the other boy's leg and sent it staggering. Gray's down cut was answered by an overhand that detended his end. When he tried his side wings, John swept aside his blade and slammed a mail for arms into his chest. Graham lost his footing and sat down in the snow. John knocked his sword from his finger with a slash to his wrist that brought a cry of pain. Enough! Sir Alliser turned out a voice with an edge like Valerian steel. Graham cradled his hand. The bastard broke my wrist. The bastard hamstrung you. Open your empty skull and cut off your hand. Or would have, if this blade had an edge. It's fortunate for you that the wash needs stable boys as well as rangers. Sir Lannister gets your adhering and told, get the Orange on his feet. He has funeral arrangement to make. John took off his helm as the other boys were pulling Grey to his feet. The frosty morning air felt good on his face. He leaned on his sword, drew a deep breath, and allowed himself a moment to serve the servitory. That's a long sword, not an old man. King, Sir Alliser said sharply, are your legs haunting? Lord, Snow. John hated that name, a mockery that Sir Alliser had hung on him the first day he came to practice. The boy had picked it up and now he had it everywhere. He slid the long sword back into his scabbard No, he replied. Thorn strode towards him, grips black leather, whispering faintly as he moved. He was a compact man of 50 years, spare and hard, and with grey in his black hair, and eyes like ships of honest. The truth now, he commanded. I am tired. John admitted his arm burned from the weight of the long sword, and he was starting to feel his bruises now that the fight was done. What you are is weak. I won. No, the Arthurs lost one of the other boys. Snigger. John knew better than to reply. He had beaten everyone that Sir Alice had sent against him. Him nothing. The master at arms served up holy direction. Thorn hated him. John had decided, of course. He hated the other boys even worse. That would be all. Thorn told them, I can only stomach so much imputed in any one day. If the other ever comes for us, I pray they have archers, because you lot are fit for nothing more than arrows fodder. John followed the rest back to the armory, walking alone. He often walked alone here. There were almost 20 in the group he trained with, yet not one he could call a friend. Most were 2 or 3 years his senior, yet not one was half the finger Rob had been at 14. Darian was quick, but afraid of being hit. Hart used his sword like a dagger. Jerry was weak as a girl, brain slow and clumsy. Other blues were brutally hard, but he ran right into your attack. The more time he spent with them, the more John despised them. Inside, John hung sword and scabbard from a hook in the stone wall, ignoring the order around him. Methodically, he began to strip off his mail, leather, and sweat-soaked swollen shock of coal burned in iron brazier at either end of the long room. Then John found himself shivering. The shield was always with him here. In a few years, he would forget what it felt like to be warm. The weariness came on him suddenly as he doomed the grosspunk black that were there everyday wear. He sat on a bench, his finger fumbling with the fastening on his skull. So cold, he thought, remembering the warm hall of Winterfell, where the hot water ran through the walls like blood through a man's body. There was scant warmth to be found in Castle Black. The walls were cold here, and the people colder. No one had told him the night watch would be like this. No one except Tyron Lannister, the dwarf, had given him the truth on the road. Not but by then it had been too late. John wondered if his father had known what the world would be like. He must have. He thought that only made it hot the worse. Even his uncle had abandoned him in this cold place at the end of the world. Up here, the genial Benja Stark he had known became a different person. He was first stranger, and he spent his days and nights with Lord Commander Mormont and Master Aemon and the other high officer. With John was given over to the less than tender charge of Sir Alistair Thorn. 3 days after their arrival, John had heard that Benjen Stark was to lead a half-dozen men on ranging into the Hunter Forest. That night, he sought out his uncle in the Great Timber, common half, and placed to go with him. Benjen refused. His courtly this is not Winterfell, he told him as he cut his meat with fork and dagger. On the world, a man gets only what he earned. You are no rangers, John, only a great boy with the smell of summer still on you. Stupidly, John argued, I will be 15 on my name day. He said, almost a man, bro. Then they start frowned. A boy you are, and a boy you will remain until Sir Alistair says you are fit to be a man of my night watch. If you thought your Stark blood would win you easy for favor, you were wrong. We put aside our old families when we swear our vows. Your father will always have a place in my heart, but these are my brothers now. He gestured with his dagger at the men around them. All the hard-cold men in the black. John rose at dawn the next day to watch his uncle lead one of his rangers, a big, ugly man, sang a bawdy song as he saddled his gharry, his breath steaming in the cold morning air. Ben Stark smiled at that, but he had no smile for his nephew. How often must I tell you no? John, we will speak when I return. As he watched his uncle lead his horse into the tunnel, John had remembered the things that Tyrone Lannister told him on the King's Road, and in his eyes he saw Ben Stark lying there, his blood red on the snow. The thought made him sick. What was he becoming? Afterward, he sought out Ghost in the loneliness of his cell and buried his face in his thick white fur. If he must be alone, he would make a solitude his armor. Castle Black had no godswood, only a small sept and a drunky scepter. But John could not find heat in him to pray to any gods, old or new. If they were real, he thought they were as square and implacable as winter. He missed his truth. Brother Little Raycon, bright eyes shining as he begged for his sweet. Rob, his driver and best friend and constant companion Bran. Stormbolt and Kairos always wanting to follow and join in whatever John and Rob were doing. He missed the girl too, even Sasha, who never called him anything but my half brother, since she was old enough to understand what bastard meant. And Arya, he missed her even more than Rob, skinny little thing that she was. All scrap knees and tangled hair and torn cloth, so fierce and willful. Arya never seems to fit no more than he had, yet she always made John smile. He would give anything to be with now, to muss up her hair once more and watch her make a face, to hear her finish a sentence with him. You broke my wrist, bastard boy. John lifted his eyes at the solemn voice. Grey loomed over him, thick of neck and red of face, with three of his friends behind him. A new told her a short, ugly boy with an unpleasant voice. The recruit all called him Todd. The other two were the ones Yuri had brought north with them. John remembered, rappers stuck down in the fingers. He forgotten their names. He hardly ever spoke to them. If he could help it, they were brutes and bullies without a tingle of honor between them. John stood up. I will break the other one up for you if you ask nicely. Grey was 16 and a head taller than John. All four of them were bigger than he was, but they did not scare him. He did beat him, every one of them in the yard. Maybe we will break you, one of the rappers said. John reached back for his sword, but one of them grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back. You make us look bad, complained Todd. You look bad before I ever met you. John told him. The boy who had his arm jacked upward on him had pain lanced through him, but John would not cry out. Todd stepped close. The little loudly had his mouth on him. He said he had pig eyes, small and shiny. Is that your mommy? Mass bastard. What was she? Some war. Tell us her name. Maybe I heard her a time or two. He laughed. John twisted like an eel and slumped a heel down across the instep of his boys holding him. There was a sudden cry of pain, and he was free. He flew at Toad, knocked him backward over a bench, and landed on his chest with both hands on his throat, smashing his head against the parquet. Two from the finger pulled him off, throwing him roughly to the ground. Grey began to kick at him. John was rolling away from the blow when a booming voice cut through the gloom of the armory. Stop this! Now! John pulled himself to his feet. Don Annoyed stood murmuring at them. The yard is for fighting. The armor said, keep your quarrel out of my armory, or I will make them my quarrels. You will not like that. Todd sat on the floor, giggling, feeling the back of his head. His finger came away bloody. He tried to kill me. That's true. I saw it. One of the rappers put in him. He broke my wrist. Green said again, holding it out to Noy for inspection. The armor gave the offer wrist the briefest of glance. A bruise, perhaps a sprain. Master Amor will give you a say. Go with him. Told her that head want looking after. The rest of you return to your cell. Not you, Snow. You stay. John sat heavily on the long wooden bench as the other left, obviously to the look they gave him. The silent promise of future retribution. His arm was troubled. The wash has need of every man it can get. Donanoy said when they were alone, even men like Tom, you will not win any honor like killing him. John anger fled. He said my mother was a war. I had him. What of it? Lord Eddard Stark was not a man to sleep with wars. John said Ashley, his honor did not prevent him from fathering a bastard, did it? John was cold with rage. Can I go? You go when I tell you to go. John stared solemnly at the smoke rising from the brazier until Neon took him under the shield, thick fingers twisting his head around. Look at me when I am talking to you, boy. John looked. The armor had a chest like a keg of ale and a gut to match. His nose was flat and broad, and he always seems in need of a shave. The left sleeve of his black wool tunic was fastened at the shoulder with a silver pin in the shape of a long sword. Word once makes you mother war. She was what she was, and nothing thought say can change that. You know, we have men on the wall whose mother was not my mother. John thought stubbornly. He knew nothing of his mother, and that Stark would not talk of her. Yet he dreamed of her at times, so often that he could almost see her face in his dream. She was beautiful and high-born, and her eyes were kind. You think you had it hard? Then a high lord bastard, the armorer went on. That boy Jerry is a septon get, and cut of pig is the base-born son of a tavern tons. Now he commanded eastward by the sea. I don't care, John said. I don't care about them, and I don't care about you or Ton or Bendy Stark or any of it. I ate it here. It's cold. Yes, cold, hard and mean. That's the walls and the men who walked it, not like the stories your wet nose told you. Well, peace on the stories and peace on your wet nose. This is the way it is. You are here for life, same as the rest of us. Life, John repeated bitterly. The armorer could talk about life. His hard won. He only taken the black after he lost an arm at the siege of Stone, and before that he smit before Stannis Baratheon, the king's brother. He did seem the seven kingdoms from one end to the other. He did feasted and wedged and fought in 100 battle days. They said it was Donanoy who forged King Robert wall armor, the one that crushed the life from Rhaegar Targaryen on the trident. He done all the things that John would never do. And then when he was old, well past 30, he taken a glancing blow from an ass and the wound as feasting until the whole armor had to come off. Only then, crippled at Donanoy's come to the wall, when his life was all but over. Yes, life, Noy said, a long life or a short one, it's up to you. Knows the road you are walking. One of your brother will slice your throat for you one night. They are not my brothers, John snapped. They hate me because I am better than they are. No, they hate you because you act like you are better than they are. They looked at you and see a castle-bred bastard who thinks he is a lordly. The armor leaned close. You are not lordly. Remember that. You are a snow, not a Stark. You are a bastard and a bully. A bully. John almost choked on the wall. The accusation was so unjust it took his breath away. They were the ones who came after me. 4 of them. For that you are humiliated in the yard. 4 who are probably afraid of you. I have watched you fight. It's nothing wrong with you. Put a good edge on your sword, and they had been dead meat. You know it. I know it. They know it. You leave them nothing. You shame them. Does that make you proud? John hesitated. He did feel proud when he won. Why should he? But the armorer was talking that way too, making it sound as if he were doing something wrong. They are all older than me, he said defensively, older and bigger and stronger than the truth. I will wag your master at arm. taught you how to fight bigger men at Winterfell, though it was he, some old knight, Sir Roderick Castle, John said, verily. There was a trap here. He felt it close around him. Donal Noy leaned forward into John's face. Now think on this, boy. None of this other have ever had a master at arm until Sir Alisa. Their father were farmers and wagon men, and poachers, smiths and miners and oak on the trading galley. What they will know of fighting, they learned between deck in the alleys of Old Town, and Lanny Spot in Wayside Brother and Tavern on the King's Road. They may have clapped a few sticks together before they came here, but I promise you not one in 20 was ever rich enough to own a race sword. His look was grand, so how do you like this taste of your victory now? Lord Snow, don't call me that, John said sharply. That the force had gone out of his anger. Suddenly he felt ashamed and guilty. I did not think. Best you start thinking. No, I warned him. That's asleep with a dagger by your bed. Now go. By the time John left the armory, it was almost midday. The sun had broken through the cloud. He turned his back on it and lifted his eyes to the walls, blazing blue and crystallized in the sunlight. Even after this week, the sight of it still gave him the shivers. Centuries of wind blow, death had poked and scorched it, covering it like a film, and it often seems a pale grey, the color of an overcast sky. But when the sun caught and fell on a bright day, it shone alike with light, a colossal blue wet cliff that filled up half the sky, the largest structure ever built by the hands of man. Then the stag had told John on the King's Road, when he had first caught sight of the wall in the distance, and beyond the dab the most useless Tyrone Lannister had added with a grin, but even the imps grew silent as they rode closer. You could see it from miles off, a pale blue line across the northern horizon, stretching away to the east and west and vanishing in the far distance. Immense and unbroken, this is the end of the world. It seems to say when they finally spies Castle Black, its timber, skips and stone tower look like nothing more than a handful of toy blocks scattered on the snow. Beneath the vast wall of ice, the ancient stronghold of the Black Brothers was no Winterfell, no true castle at all. Lacking walls, it could not be defended, not from the south or east or west, but it was only the north that cancelled the ninth watch, and to the north loomed the walls. Almost 700 feet high it stood, 3 times the height of the tallest tower in the stronghold. It shattered. His uncle said the top was wide enough for a dozen armored knights to ride abreast. The gaunt outline of huge catapults and monstrous wooden cranes stood sentry up there like the skeleton of great birds, and among them walked men in black as small as ants. As he stood outside the armory looking up, John felt almost as overwhelmed as he had that day on the King's Road, when he had seen for the first time. The world was like that. Sometimes he could almost forget that it was there. The world, you forgot about the sky or the earth underfoot, but there were other times when it seems as if there was nothing else in the world. It was older than the Seven Kingdoms, and when he stood beneath it and looked up, it made John dizzy. He could feel the great weight of all that eyes pressing down on him, as if it were about to topple, and somehow John knew that if he felt the world fell with him. Makes you wonder what lies beyond. A familiar voice said, John looked around. Lannister, I did not see. I mean, I thought I was alone. Tyrone Lannister was bundled in force. Particularly, he looked like a very small bear. There must be said for taking people unaware. You never know what you might learn. You will not learn anything from me, John told him. He had seen little of the dwarf since their journey ended. As the Queen's own brother, Tyrone Lannister had been honored guest of the Night Watch. The Lord Commander had given him room in the king's tower. So called thought no king had visited it for a 100 years. And Lannister dined at morn, on a table, spent his day riding the wall, and looked. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Igbesa, A Game of Thrones. Book of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin. As a Queen's own brother, Tyrion Lannister had been an honored guest of the Ninth Watch. The Lord Commander had given him room in the king's tower, so called, though no king had visited it for 100 years. And Lannister dined at Mammoth's own table and spent his day riding the wall, and his night dicing and drinking with Sir Alisa and Boris Marsh and the other high officer. Oh, I learn things everywhere I go. The little man gestured up at the walls with a gargled black walking stick as I was saying, why is it that when one man build a wall, the next man immediately need to know what's on the other side? He cocked his head and looked at John with his curious, mismatched eyes. You do want to know what's on? Don't you? It's nothing special. John said he wanted to ride with Benjen Stark on his ranging deep into the mystery of the haunted forest, wanted to fight Maris Rada, winding and wall the realm against the other, but it was better not to speak of the thing you wanted. The ranger says it's just wood and mountain and frozen lakes with lot of snow and ice. And the Grand King and the Snark, Tyrion said, let us not forget them. Lord, snow or else, what that big thing for? Don't call me Lord Snow. The dwarf lifted an eyebrow. Would you rather be called the imps? Let them see their word can cut you, and you will never be free of the mockery. If they want to give you a name, take it, make it your own. Then they can hurt you with it anymore. He gestured with his stick. Come, walk with me. They will be serving some veal stew in the common hall by now. And could I do with a bowl of something odd? John was hungry too. So he felt inside Lannister and slowed his pace to match the dwarf upward. Waddling step, the wind was rising, and they could hear the old wooden building creaking around them, and in the distance a heavy shouter bugging over and over. Forgotten once there was a muffled thump as a blanket of snow slid from a roof and landed near them. I don't see your wolf, Lannister said as they walked. I chained him up in the old stable when we are training. They bought all the horses in the east stable now. So no one bothered him. The rest of the time he stayed with me. My sleeping cell is in Arden Tower. That's the one with the broken battlement. No shelter store in the yard below, and a lane to eat like our noble King Robert after a long night drinking. I thought all those buildings had been abandoned. John struggled. No one cares where you sleep. Most of the old keeps are empty. You can pick any cell you want. Once Castle Black had asked 5,000 fighting men with all their horses and servants and weapons. Now it was home to a tent that numbers, a part of it were falling into ruin. Tyrion Lannister laughed. Seems in the cold air, I will be sure to tell your father to arrest more Stone Mansion. Before your tower collapsed, John could taste the mockery there, but there was no denying the truth. The Wash had built 19 great strongholds along with the walls, but only 3 were still occupied. Eastward, east-west, East-Wash, on its grey wind-swept shore. The shadow tower had by the mountains where the world ended, and Castle Black between them. At the end of the King's Road, the other keeps long desert were lonely haunted place, where cold wind whistled through black windows and the spirits of the dead manned the parapet. It's better than I am by myself, Jon said stubbornly. The rest of them are scared of ghosts. Wise boys, Lannister said. Then he changed the subject. The talk is your uncle is too long away. Jon remembered the wish he did wish in his anger, the vision of Benny Stark dead in the snow, and he looked away quickly. The dwarf had a way of sensing things, and Jon did not want him to see the guilt in his eyes. He said he did back by name Dave. He admitted his name they and come and gone unremarked a fortnight past. They were looking for Sir Walmer Royce, his father is bannerman to Lord Harry, Uncle Benjamin, and they might search as far as the Shadow Tower. That's all the way up in the mountain. I hear that a good man, ranger, have vanished of late. Lannister said as he mounted the steps to the common hall. He grinned and opened the door. Perhaps Grotki are hungry this year. Inside the wall was an immense drafty, even with a fire roaring in his great its crown nested in the timber of its lofty ceiling. Jon heard their cries overhead as he accepted a bowl of stew, an eel of black bread from the cook, grain and toad, and some of the other were seated at the bench nearest the wall, laughing and cursing each other in rough voice. Jon eyed them thoughtfully for a moment. Then he chose a spot at the far end of the wall, well all away from the other diner. Tyrion Lannister sat across from him, sniffing at the stew suspiciously. Belly onions, carrots. He mounted. Someone should tell the cook that turnip is not a meat. It's mud stew. Jon pulled off his glove and warmed his hand in the steam rising from the bowl. The smell made his mouth water. Snow. Jon knew Alyssa's toned voice, but there was a chorus note in it that he had not heard before. He turned. The Lord commanded, "Want to see you." Now, for a moment, Jon was too frightened to move. Why would the Lord Commander want to see him? They had heard something about Benjen. He thought widely he was dead. The vision had come true. "It is my uncle," he blurted. Is he returned safe? The Lord Commander is not accustomed to waiting, was Sir Alyssa replied, "and I am not accustomed to having my command questioned by bastard." Tyrion Lannister swung off the bench and roared, "Stop it, Thorne. You are frightening the boy. Keep out of matter that does not concern you." Lannister, "You have no place here. I have a place at court." Though the dwarf said, smiling, "A word in the right ear, and we died a swell old man before you get another boy to train. Now tell Snow why the old bear needs to see him. Is there news of his uncle?" "No," Sir Lannister said. "This is another matter entirely. A bird arrived this morning from Winterfell with a message that concerned his brother." He corrected himself. His half-brother, Bran. Jon breathed, scrambling to his feet. "Something's happened to Bran?" Tyrion Lannister laid a hand on his arm. "Jon," he said, "I am truly sorry." Jon scarcely heard him. He brushed off Tyrion hard and strode across the hall. He was running by the time he hit the door. He raced to the commander, kept dashing through drift of old snow. When the guard passed him, he took the tower step 2 at a time. By the time he burst into the presence of the Lord Commander, his boots were soaked and Jon was with wide-eyed and panting. "Bran," he said, "what does it say about Bran?" Joel Marmor, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, was a gruff old man with an immense bar head and a shaggy grey-haired beard. He had a raven on his arm, and he was feeding it a kernel of corn. I am told you I can read. He shook the raven off, and it flapped its wings and flew to the windows. There it sat watching as Momo drew a roll of paper from his bed and handed it to John. Come, it muttered in a reckoned voice. Come, come. John's fingers traced the outline of the dire wolf in the white wax of the broken seat. He recognized Rob's hands, but the letter seems to blunt and run as he tried to read them. He realized he was crying, and then, through the tears, he found the sense in the word and raised his head. He woke up. He said, the gods gave him back. Cripple Mammon said, I am sorry, boy. Read the rest of the letter. He looked at the word, but they did not matter. Nothing mattered. Brown was going to leave. My brother is going to leave. He told Mammon. The Lord Commander shook his head and gathered up a fistful of corn and whistled. The raven fled to his shoulder, crying, leave, leave. John ran down the stairs, a smile on his face, and Rob letter in his hand. My brother is going to leave, he told the guards. They exchanged a look. He ran back to the common hall, where he found Tyrone Lannister just finishing his meal. He grabbed the little man under the arms, hoisted him up in the hair, and spun him around in a circle. Bran is going to leave. He whooped. Lannister looked, started. John, put him down and thrust the paper into his hand. Yeah, read it, he said. Others were gathering around and looking at him curiously. John noticed Grey. A few went to him. Grey edged backward and put up his hand. Stay away from me now, you bastard. John smiled at him. I am sorry about your wrist. Rob used the same move on me once, only with a wooden blade. It hurt like 7 hells, but yours but must be worse. Look, if you want, I can show you how to defend that. Alyssa turned, overheard him. Lord Snow wants to take my place. Now his nails. I have an easier time to teaching a wolf to jungle down. You will training this across. I will take the wagon. I will take the wager. Sir Alyssa, John said, I didn't love to see ghosts juggle. John heard grain soaked in his breath. Shocked silence fell. Then Tyrone Lannister guffed. 3 of the Black brothers joined him in front of a nearby table. The laughter spread up and down the bench until even the cook joined in. The bed stared in the rafter, and finally even Grey began to chuckle. Silence never took his eyes from John as the laughter rolled around him. His face dark and his sword had cut into fist. That was a grievous error. Lord Snow, he said at last in the acid tones of the enemy. Next, Eddard. Dreaming of Eddard Stark rode through the towering bronze door of the Red Saw, tired, hungry, and irritable. He was still a horse, dreaming of a long, hot saw, a roast fowl, and a feather bed, when the king's steward told him that Grandmaster Percy had conveyed an urgent meeting of the small council. The honor of the hand presence was requested as soon as it was convenient. It will be convenient on the morrow, Ned snapped as he dismounted. The steward bowed very low. I shall give the councillor your regret, my lord. No, damn it. Ned said it would not do to offend the council before he had even begun. I will see them. Pray give me a few moments to change into something more presentable. Yes, my lord, the steward said. We have given you, Lord, a reformer chamber in the tower of the hall. If it please you, I shall have your things taken there. My thanks, Ned said as he ripped off his riding glove and turned them into his belt. The rest of his household was coming through the gate behind him. Ned saw what Vayon pulled his own steward and called out, It seems the council has urgent need of me. See that my daughter finds their bench chamber and tell Jory to keep them there. Arya is not to go exploring. Paul bowed. Ned turned back to the royal steward. My wagon are still struggling through the city. I shall need appropriate garment. It will be my great pleasure. The steward said, and so Ned had come striding into the council chamber, bored, tired, and dressed in borrowed clothing, to find 4 members of the small council waiting for him. The chamber was richly furnished. Mistrich carpet covered the floor instead of rush, and in one corner 100 fabulous beasts, coverted in bright paint on a carved screen from the summer ice. The walls were hung with tapestry from novels and poems, and lines and a pair of Valerian spines. Flagged the door, eyes of polished garnet smoldering in black marble face. The Chancellor Ned, like List the eunuch, wary assaulted him the moment he entered. Lord Stark, I was grievous, sad to hear about your trouble on the King's Road. We have all been visited except to light candle for Prince Joffrey. I pray for his recovery. His hand left pad of stain on Ned's sleeve, and it smelled as foul and sweet as flower on the grave. Your ghost has heard you, Ned replied, cool yet polite. The prince grew stronger every day. He disentangled himself from the eunuch grip and crossed the room to where Lord Relling stood by the screen, talking quietly with a short man who could only be Littlefinger. Really had been a boy of 8 when Robert won the throne, but he had grown into a man, so his brother that Ned found it disconcerting. Whenever he saw him, it was as if the years had slipped away and Rob stood before him, fresh from his victory on the Trident. I see you have arrived safely, Lord Stark, Rayleigh said. And you as well? Ned replied, You must forgive me, but sometimes you look the very image of your brother Robert. A poor copy, Rayleigh said with a shrug, though much better distress. Littlefinger quipped, Lord Rayleigh spent more on clothing than half the ladies of the court. It was true enough. Lord Rayleigh was in dark green velvet, with a dozen golden stars embroidered on his doublet. A cloth of gold half-cape was draped casually across one shoulder, fastened with an emerald brooch. There was crime, Rayleigh said with a laugh. The way you dress, for one, Littlefinger ignores the Jew. He eyed Ned with a smile on his lips that bordered on insolence. I have hoped to meet you for some years, Lord Stark. No doubt Lady Catelyn has mentioned me to you. She has, Ned replied with a shield in his lap, very cheerful over to listen. Rather too well. Littlefinger said, I still carry a token of his esteem. Did Brandon speak of me too? Often and with some heat, Ned said, hoping that would end it. He had no patience with this game they played. This duly with words. I should have thought that it ill suits your Stark. Littlefinger said, Here in the South, they say you are all made of ice, and then when you ride below the neck, I don't plan on mentioning soon. Lord Baelish, you may count on it. Ned moved to the council table and said, Master Percy, I trust you are well. The Grand Master smiled gently from his tall chair at the foot of the table. Well enough for a man of my years, my lord, he replied, yet I do tire easily. I fear whispering strand of white. Half reached the broad barred dome of his forehead, above a kindly face. His master collar was no simple metal choker, such as Lewin wore, but 24 heavy chains would together into a padron metal necklace that covered him from throat to breast. The links were forged of every metal known to man, black iron and red gold, bright copper and dull lead, steel and time and pale silver, brass and bronze and platinum, garnet and amethyst and black piece adorned the metal works. And here and there on the emerald or ruby, perhaps we might begin soon. The Grand Master said, hands knitting together atop his broad stomach. I fear I shall fall asleep if we wait much longer. As you will, the king's seat sat empty at the head of the table. The crown stag of Baratheon embroidered in gold thread on its pillow. Ned took the chair beside it as the right hand of his king. My lord, he said, formally, I am sorry to have kept you waiting. You are the king's hand. Warys said, we serve at your pleasure. Lord Stark, as the other took their accustomed seat, it struck Eddie Stark forcefully that he did not belong here, in this room, with these men. He remembered what Robert had told him in the script below Winterfell. I am surrounded by flatterers and fools. The king had insisted. Ned looked down the council table and wondered which were the flatterers and which the fools. He thought he knew already. We are but 5. He pointed out. Lord Stannis took himself to Dragonstone not long after the kings went north. Where he said, and our gallant Sir Barrister, no doubt, right beside the king as he make his way through the city. As befit the Lord, commander of the King's Guard, perhaps we had best wait for Sir Barrister and the king to join us. Ned suggested, really. Baratheon laughed aloud. If we wait for my brother to grace us with his royal presence, it could be a long seat. Our good king, Robert had many cares. Varys said, he entrusts some small matters to us to lighten his load. What Lord Varys means is that all the business of corn and crops and justice bore my royal brothers to tears. Lord Riley said, so if it falls to us to govern the realm, he does send us a command from time to time. He drew a tightly rolled paper from his sleeve and laid it on the table. This morning he commanded me to ride ahead with all haste and ask Grand Master Percy to convey this council at once. He has an urgent task for us. Littlefinger smiled and handed the paper to Ned. It bore the royal seal. Ned broke the wax with his thumb and flattered the letter to consider the king's urgent command. Reading the words with mounting disbelief. Was there no end to Robert? Folly, and to do this in his name, that was sought in the wound. God be good. He swore. What Lord Eddard means to say, Lord Raleigh and asked, is that his grace instruct us to stage a great tournament in honor of his disappointment at the hand of the king? How much? Asked Littlefinger mildly. Ned read the answer of the letter. 40,000 golden dragon to the champion, 20,000 to the man who comes a second, another 20 to the winner of the melee, and 10,000 to the victor of archery competition. 90,000 gold pieces. Littlefinger signed, and we must not neglect the other cost. Robert will want a prodigious feast. That means cook, carpenter, serving girls, singer, jugglers, fools. Fool we have in plenty. Lord Raleigh said. Grandmaster Percy looked to Littlefinger and asked, will the treasury bear the expense? What treasure is that? Littlefinger replied with a twist of his mouth. Spare me the foolishness, master. You know as well as I thought the treasury has been empty for years. I shall have to borrow the money. No doubt the Lannister will be accommodating. We own Lord Tywin some 3 million dragon at present. What matter another 100,000? Ned was stunned. Are you claiming that the crown is 3 million gold piece in debt? The crown is more than 6 million gold piece in debt. Lord Stark, the Lannister are the biggest part of it, but we have also borrowed from Lord Tyrell, the Iron Bank of Bravo, and several Tyrosian trading cartels of late. I had to turn the fate, the eye scepter, or angle worse than a Danish fishmonger. Ned was anguished. Harry Tyrell left a treasury flowing with gold. How could you let this happen? Littlefinger gave a shrug. The master of coin find the money. The king and the aunt spent it. I will not believe that John Arryn allowed Robert to beggar the realm. Ned said hotly. Grand Master Percy shook his great bare head, his chains clinging softly. Lord Arryn was a prudent man, but I fear that his grace does not always listen to wise counsel. My royal brother loves tournaments and feasts.
Really, Baraton said, Lot what he called counting coppers. I will speak with his grace. Ned said, this turning is an extravagance the realm cannot afford. Speak to him as you will. Lord Riley said, we had still best make our plans. Another day, Ned said, perhaps too sharply. From the look they gave him, he would have to remember that he was no longer in Winterfell, where only the king stood higher. Yeah, he was but first among equals. Forgive me, my lord, he said in a softer tone. I am tired. Let us call a half for today, and resume when we are refresher. He did not ask for their counsel, but stood abruptly, nodded at them all, and made for the door. Outside, wagon and rider were still pouring through the castle gate, and the yard was a chaos of morgue and horse flesh, and shouting men. The king had not yet arrived, he was told, since the ugliness on the trading, the Stark and their household had risen well ahead of the main column. The better to separate themselves from the Lannister and the growing tension. Robert had hardly been seen. The talk was he was traveling in the huge wheelhouse, drunk as often as not. If so, he might be hour behind, but he would still be here too soon for Ned's liking. He had only to look at Sansa's face to feel the rage twisting inside him once again. The last fortnight of their journey had been a mystery. Sansa blamed Arya and told her that it should have been Nymeria who died. Arya was lost after she heard what happened to her butcher boy. Sansa cried herself to sleep. Arya brooded silently all day long, and Eddard Stark dreamed of a frozen hell reserved for the Stark Winterfell. He crossed the outer yard, passed under a portcullis into the inner belly, and was walking towards what he thought was the Tower of the Hand when Littlefinger appears in front of him. You are going the wrong way, Stark. Come with me. Incidentally, Ned followed Littlefinger, led him into the tower, down a stair across a small soaking courtyard, and along a desert corridor where empty suits of armor stood sentinel along the walls. They were relics of Targaryen, black steel with dragon scale scratching their hands. Now duty has forgotten. This is not the way to my chamber, Ned said. Did I say it was? I am leading you to the dungeon to slit your throat and seal your corpse up behind a wall, Littlefinger replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. We have no time for this, Stark. Your wife awaits. What game are you playing? Littlefinger clapping his hand at Winterfell, hundreds of leagues from here. Oh, Littlefinger grey green, eyes glitter with amusement. Then it appears someone has emanated an astonished impersonation. For the last time, come or don't come, and I will keep her for myself. He hurried down the stairs. Ned followed him wearily, wondering if this day would ever end. He had no taste for this intrigue, but he was beginning to realize that they were meat and meat to a man like Littlefinger. At the foot of the step was a heavy door of oak and iron. Percy Baelish lifted the crossbar and gestured Ned through. They stepped out into the ruddy gloom of dusk on a rocky bluff high above the river. We are outside the castle, Ned said. You are a hard man to fool, Stark, Littlefinger said with a smile. Was it the sun that gave it away? Or the sky? Follow me. There are niches cut in the rock. Try not to fall to your death. Captain would never understand. With that, he was over the side of the cliff, descending as quick as a monkey. Ned studied the rock face of the bluff for a moment, then followed more slowly. The niche were there as Littlefinger had promised. Shallow cuts that would be invisible from below, unless you knew you just where to look for them. The river was a long... This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Igbesa, A Game of Thrones. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Igbesa, A Game of Thrones. Book of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin. Dazzling distance below, Ned kept his face impressed to the rock. Try
Try not to look down any more often than he had to. When at last he reached the bottom, a narrow and moody trail along the water edge, Littlefinger was lazy against a rock and eating an apple. He was almost done to the score. "You are growing old and slow, Stark," he said, flipping the apple casually into the rushing water. "No matter we ride the rest of the way." He had 2 horses waiting. Ned mounted up and trotted behind him, down the trail and into the city. Finally, Bellish drew near, rein in the front of a ramshackle building, 3-story timbered, its window bright with lamps light in the gathering dusk, the sound of music and raucous laughter drifting out and floated over the water. Beside the door swung an ornate oil lamp on a heavy chain with a globe of leather red glass. Ned Stark dismounted in a fury. "A brother," he said as he seized Littlefinger by the shoulder and spun him around. "You have brought me all this way to take me to a brother. Your wife is inside." Littlefinger said it was the final insult. "Brandon was too kind to you," Ned said as he smacked the small man back against a wall and shoved his dagger up under the little pointed shield. "My lord, no!" an urgent voice called out. "He speak the truth." There were footsteps behind him. Ned's pug knife in her hand, an old white-haired man hurried towards him. Then he was dressed in a brown rough spug, and the soft flesh under his chin not wobbled as they ran. "This is no business of yours," Ned began. Suddenly, the recognition came. He lowered the dagger, astonished Sir Roderick. Roderick Carson nodded. "Your lady awaits you upstairs." Ned was lost. "Kathleen is truly here. This is not some strange jape of Littlefinger." He sheathed his blade. "Would that it were Stark!" Littlefinger said, "Follow me," and try to look a shade more lecherous and a shade less like the king's hand. "Would not do to have you recognize. Perhaps you could foldle a breast or two." Just in passing, they went inside through a crowded common room where a fat woman was singing vaudeville song while pretty young girls in line shifts and wisps of color like pressed themselves against their lover and dandled on their laps. No one paid Ned the least bit of attention. Sir Roderick waited below white Littlefinger, led him up to the 3rd floor, along a corridor, and brought a door. Inside, Kathleen was waiting. She cried out when she saw him, ran to him, and embraced him fiercely. "My lady," Ned whispered in wonderment. "Oh, very good," said Littlefinger, closing the door. He recognized her. "I fear you did never come." "My lord," she whispered against his chest, "Petty has been bringing me reports. He told me of your troubles with Arya and the young prince. Are you, my girls? Ah, my guests, both in mourning and full of anger." He told her, "Kat, I don't understand. What are you doing in King's Landing?" "What happened?" Ned asked his wife. It's Bran. Is he dead?" was the word that came to his lips. But he could not say it is Bran, but not as you think. Kathleen said Ned was lost. "Then why are you here, my lord? What is this place?" "Just what it appears," Littlefinger said, easing himself onto a window seat. "A brother, can you think of a less likely place to find a Kathleen told him?" He smiled. "As a chance, I own this particular establishment, so arrangements were easily made. I am most anxious to keep the Lannister from learning that Kat is here in King's Landing." "Why?" Ned asked. He saw her hand then, the awkward way she held them, the raw red scar, the stiffness of the last 2 fingers on her left. "You have been hurt." He took her hand in his own, turned them over. "God, those are deep cuts. A gash from a sword. How did this happen, my lady?" Kathleen slid a dagger out from under her claw and placed it in his hand. This blade was sent to open Brown's throat and spit his life blood. Ned's head jerked up. "But why would she put a finger to his lip. Let me tell it all, my love. It will go faster than that way. Listen. So he listened and she told it all. From the fire in the library tower to Vare and the guardsmen and Littlefinger. And when she was done, Eddard Stark sat dazed beside the table, the dagger in his hand. Bran's wolf had saved the boy's life. He thought dully, what was it that Jon had said when they found the pups in the snow? Your children were meant to have these pups, my lord, and he had killed Sansa. And for what? Was it guilt he was feeling, or fear? If the gods had sent these wolves, what folly had he done? Painfully, Ned forced his thought back to the dagger and what it means. The imp's dagger, he repeated. It made no sense. His hand caught around the smooth dragon bone. It, and he slammed the blade into the table, felt it bite into the wood. It stood mocking him. Why should Tywin Lannister want Bran dead? The boy had never done him harm. Do you, Stark, have not but snow between your ears? Littlefinger asked. The imp would never have acted alone. Ned rose past the length of the room. If the queen had a role in this, or God forbid, the king himself, no, I will not believe that. Yet even as he said the word, he remembered that sheep mourning on the barren land, and Robert's talk of sending iron knives after the Targaryen princes. He remembered Rhaegar, infant son, the red rune of his skull, and the way the king had turned away, as he had turned away in diary audience not so long ago. He could still hear Sansa pleading as Lyanna had pleaded once. Most likely, the king did not know. Littlefinger said it would not be the first time. Our good Robert is practiced at closing his eyes to things he would rather not see. Ned had no reply for that. The face of the butcher boy swam up before his eye, cloven almost in two. Afterward, the king had said not a word. His head was pondering. Littlefinger sauntered over to the table, wrenched the knife from the wood. Accusation is treason either way. Accuse the king and you will dance with limp pain before the words are out of your mouth. The queen, if you can find proof, and if you can make Robert listen, then perhaps we have proof. Ned said, we have the dagger. This Littlefinger flipped the knife casually, end over end, a sweet piece of steel, but it cuts two ways. My lord, the imps will not doubt swear the blade was lost or stolen while he was at Winterfell. And with his Arlen dead, who is here to give him the lies? He tossed the knife lightly to Ned. My counsel is to drop that in the river and forget that it was ever forged. Ned regarded him coldly. Lord Baelish, I am a Stark of Winterfell. My son lies crippled, perhaps dying. He would be dead, and Catelyn with him. But for a wolf pump we found in the snow, if you truly believe I could forget that, you are as big a fool now as when you took up sword against my brother. A fool and you be Stark. Yet I am still here while your brother has been murdering in his frozen grave for some 14 years now. If you are so eager to murder beside him, far be it from me to dissuade you, but I would rather not be included in the party. Thank you very much. You would be the last man I would willingly include in any party. Lord Baelish, you would mean deeply. Littlefinger placed a hand over his heart. For my part, I always found you Stark a treason, a tiresome lot. The cat seems to have become attached to you for reasons I cannot comprehend. I shall try to keep you alive for her sake. A full tax, admittedly, but I could never refuse your wife anything. I told Petty are suspicious about Jon Arryn's death. Catelyn said he has promised to help you find the truth. That was not news that Eddard Stark welcomed, but it was true enough that they needed help. And Littlefinger had been almost a brother to Cat once. It would not be the first time that Ned had been forced to make common cause with a man he despised. Very well. He said, thrusting the dagger into his bed. You spoke of Vary. Does the eunuch know all of it? Not from my lips, Catelyn said. You did not wed a fool at the start, but wearies as ways of learning things that no man could know. He has some dark art, Ned, I swear it. He has spies, that is well known, Ned said dismissively. It is more than that. Catelyn insisted. Sir Roderick spoke to her, Aaron Santaga, in all secrecy. Yet somehow the spider knew of their conversation. I fear that man, Littlefinger smiled. Leave Lord Varys to me. Sweet lady, if you will permit me a small obscenity, and yet better for it, I owed the man balls in the palm of my hands. He cocked his finger, smiling. Or would if he were a man, or had any balls. You see, if the pie is open, the bird begins to sing, and Very would not like that. Where I told, I would worry more about the Lannister and less about the eunuch. Ned did not need Littlefinger to tell him that he was thinking back to the day Arya had been fond to the look on the queen's face when she said, we have a wolf, so soft and quiet. He was thinking of the boy Micah, of John Arya's sudden death, of Bran's force, of Old and Ares. Targaryen dying on the floor of his throne room while his life blood dried on a golden blade. My lady, he said, turning to Catelyn, there is nothing more you can do here. I want you to return to Winterfell at once. If there was once assassin, there could be others. Whoever ordered Bran's death will learn soon enough that the boy still lives. I had hoped to see the girl. Catelyn said that would be most unwise. Littlefinger put in the red keep in full of curious eyes, and children talk. He speak truly. My love, Ned told her. He embraced her. Take Sir Roderick and ride for Winterfell. I will watch over the girls. Go home to her son and keep them safe, as you say, my lord. Catelyn lifted her face and Ned kissed her. Her maid finger crushed against his back with a desperate strength, as if to hold him safe forever in the shelter of her arms. Would the lord and lady like the use of a bedchamber? Asked Littlefinger. I should warn you, Stark, we usually change for that sort of thing around here. A moment alone, that's all I ask. Catelyn said, very well. Littlefinger strode to the door. Don't be too long. It is past time. The Anne and I returned to the castle before our absence is noted. Catelyn went to him and took his hand in her own. I will not forget the help you paid me. Petty, when your men came for me, I did not know whether they were taking me to a friend or an enemy. I have found you more than a friend. I have found a brother I thought lost. Petty Blanche smiled. I am desperately sentimental. Sweet lady, best not tell anyone. I have spent years convincing the court that I am wicked and cruel, and I should hate to see all that hard work go for naught. Ned believed not a word of that, but he kept his voice polite as he said, you have my thanks as well. Lord Baelish, oh, now there is a treasure, Littlefinger said, exciting. When the doors are closed behind him, Ned turned back to his wife. Once you are home, send word to Emma, Taha, and Gabbard Grover under my seal. They are to rise 100 bowmen, each 45 more Cali. 200 determined Ashar can hold the neck against an army. Instruct Lord Madeline that he is to strengthen and repair all his defense at White Arbor, and see that they are well manned. And from this day on, I want a careful watch kept over Theon Greyjoy. If there is a war, we shall have sore needs of his father flee. Wars, the fear was spilling on his Catelyn face. It will not come to that, Ned promised her, praying it was true. He took her in his arms again. The Lannister are merciless in the face of weakness. As Arya Targaryen leaned to his sorrow, but they would not dare attack the north without all the palm, the realm behind them, and that they shall not have. I must play at this fool masquerade as if nothing is amiss. Remember why I came here. My lord, if I find proof that the Lannister murdered John Arryn, he felt Catelyn tremble in his arms as scarred arm clung to him. If she said, "What then, my lord?" That was the most dangerous part. Ned knew all. Justice flow from the kings, he told her. When I know the truth, I must go to Robert and pray that he is the man I think he is. He finished silently, and not that man I fear he has become. Next, Tyrion, are you certain that you must leave us soon? The Lord Commander asked him, past certain. Lord Marmor, Tyrion replied, my brother Jaime will be wondering what has become of me. He may decide that you have convinced me to take the black. With that I could. Marmor picked up a grabbed claw and cracked it in his fist. Old as he was, the Lord Commander still had the strength of a bear. You are a cunning man, Tyrion. We have need of men of your sort in the world. Tyrion grinned. Then I shall scour the 7 kingdoms for dwarf and ship them all to you. Lord Marmor, as they laughed, he sucked the meat from a crab leg and reached for another. The crab had arrived from Eastwatch early this morning, packed in a barrel of snow, and they were succulent. Sir Alyssa Thorne was the only woman at table who did not so much as crack a smile. Lannister mocked us, only you, Sir Alyssa, Tyrion said this time. The laughter round the table had a nervous, uncertain quality to it. Thorne's black eyes fixed on Tyrion with loathing. You have a bold tongue for someone who is less than half a man. Perhaps you and I should visit the yard together. Why ask, Tyrion? The scrap are here. The remark brought more soft-guard from the others. Sir Lannister stood up, his mouth a tight line. Come and make your japes with steel in your hand. Tyrion looked pointedly at his right hand. Why I have steel in my hand? Sir Alyssa, although it appears to be a scrap, for shall we do? He hopped up on his chair and began poking at Thorne's chest with the tiny fork. Rough laughter filled the tower's room. Bits of scrap flew from the Lord's Commander mouth as he began to gasp and croak. Even his raven joined him, carving loudly from above the window. Dew! Sir Alyssa Thorne walked from the room, so free. He looked as though he had a dagger up in his butt, but Mama was still gasping for breath. Tyrion pounded him on the back. To the vector goes the spoil. He called out, I claim Thorne's share of the crab. Finally, the Lord Commander recovered himself. You are a wicked man to provoke our Sir Alyssa. So, he scolded Tyrion and seated himself and took a sip of wine. If a man paints a target on his chest, he should expect that sooner or later someone will lose an arrow at him. I have seen dead men with more humor than your Sir Alyssa. Not so, objected the Lord Steward. Bow mashed the man as round and red as a pomegranate. You ought to hear the droll name he gives the ladies he trains. Tyrion had heard a few of those droll names. I will wager the lands had a few names for him as well. He said, ship the eyes of your eyes. My good lord, Sir Alyssa, Thorne should be mocking at your stable, not drinking your young warriors. The watch has no shortage of stable boys. Lord Marmor grumbled, that seems to be all they seems us this day. Stable boys and snake thieves and rapers. Sir Alyssa is an anointed knight, one of the few to take the Black Knight since I have been Lord Commander. He fought bravely at King's Landing on the wrong side. Sir Jaime Rickler commented dryly, I ought to know. I was there on the battlement beside him. Tywin Lannister gave us a splendid choice. Take the black or see our head on spike before he fall. No offense intended. Tyrion, not taken. Sir Jeremy,
My father is very fond of spy head, especially those of people who have annoyed him in some fashion, and a face as noble as yours. Well, know that he saw you decorating the city wall above the king's gate. I think he would have looked very striking up there. Thank you, Sir Jeremy replied with his sardonic smile. Lord Commander moaned clearly his throat. Sometimes I fear Sir Alistair saw you through tyrants. You do mock us and our noble purpose here. Tyrants struggle. We all need to be mocked from time to time. Lord Mamo, least we start to take ourselves too serious. More wine, please. Hear that. His cup, as Rika filled it for him. Match said, you have a great taste for a small man. Oh, I think that Lord Tyrone is quite a large man, Master Amos said from the far end of the table. He spoke softly, yet the high officer of the night watch all fell quiet. The better to hear what the ancient had to say. I think it's a giant come among us, here at the end of the world. Tyrone answered gently, I have been called many names by my lord, but giant is seldom one of them. Nonetheless, Master Amos said, as his clouded, meek white eyes moved to Tyrone's face, I think it is true. For once, Tyrone Lannister found himself at a loss for word. He could only bow his head politely and say, you are too kind, Master Amos. The blind man smiled. He was a tiny thing, wrinkled and hairless, shrunken beneath the weight of 100 years, so his master collar with its link of many metals hung loose about his throat. I have been called many things, my lord, he said, but kind is seldom one of them. This time Tyrone himself led the laughter. Much later, when the serious business of eating was done and the order had left, Mamo offered Tyrone a chair beside the fire and a cup of mulled spirit so strong they brought tears to his eyes. The king's road can be perilous, things far north. The Lord Commander told him as they drank. I have Jake and Morik. Tyrone said, and Euron is riding. Sat again. Euron is only one man. The one shall escort you as far as Winterfell. Mamo announced in a tone that broke no argument. 3 men should be sufficient if you insist, my lord. Tyrone said, you must send young Snow. He would be glad for a chance to see his brother. Mamo frowned through his thick grey beard. Snow, huh? The stark bastard, I think not. The young ones need to forget the lives they left behind them, the brother and mothers and all that. A visit home would only stir up feeling best left alone. I know these things, my own blood is king. My sister Meg rules Bear Island now. Since my son dishonored, I have never seen. He took a swallow beside Jon Snow is only a boy. You shall have 3 strong swords to keep you safe. I am touched by your concern. Lamont, Lord Moore. The strong drink was making Tyrone light-headed, but not too drunk that he did not realize that the old bear wanted something from him. I hope I can repay your kindness. You can, Mamo said bluntly. Your sister sits beside the kings. Your brother is a great knight, and your father the most powerful lord in the 7 kingdoms. Speak to them for us. Tell them of our needs here. You have seen for yourself, my lord. The night watch is dying. Our strength is less than 1,000 now. 600 here, 200 in the shadow towers, even fewer at East Watch. I'm a scanted of those fighting men. The world is 100 leagues long. Think on that. Should an attack come, I have 3 men to defend each mile of war. 3 and the 3rd, Tyrone said with a yarn. Mamo scarcely seems to hear him. The old man warmed his hand before the fire. I sent Benjamin Stark to search after young Roy's sons, lost in his first ranging. The Roy's boy was green as summer grass, yet he insisted on the honor of his own command, saying it was his due as a knight.
I did not wish to offend his lord, father. So I aided him. I sent him out with 2 men, a dim as gold as any in the wash. More food Food the raven agreed. Tyron glanced up. The bird peers down at him with those body blade eyes, ruffling its wings. Food, it called again. Doubtless, old Mammoth would take it amiss if it trotted the creature. A pity the Lord Commander took no notice of the irritating bird. Gar was near as old as I am, and longer on the wall. He went on, yet it would seem he forewarned himself and fled. I should never have believed it, not of him. But Lord Edda sent me his head from Winterfell. Of Royce, there is no word. One desert, and 2 men lost. Now Ben Stark too has gone missing. He sighed deeply. Who am I to send searching after him? In 2 years, I will be 70. Too old and too weary for the burden I bear. Yet if I set it down, who will pick it up? Alyssa Tom Bowett, March. I would have to be as blind as Master Aemon not to see what they are. The night watch had become an army of solemn boys and tired old men. Apart from the men at my table tonight, I have perhaps 20 who can read, and even fewer who can think, or perhaps lead once. The watch spent its summer building, and each Lord Commander raised the world higher than he found it. Now it's all we can do to stay alive. He was in a deadly earnest. Tyron realized he felt faintly embraced for the old man. Lord Marmor had spent a good part of his life on the world, and he needed to believe if those years were to have any meaning. I promise the king will hear of your need, Tyron said gravely, and I will speak to my father and my brother Jaime as well. And he would. Tyron Lannister was as good as his word. He left the rest unsaid that King Robert would ignore him. Lord Tywin would ask if he had taken leave of his senses, and Jaime would only laugh. You are a young man, Tyron Marmor said. How many winters have you seen? He shrugged. 8, 9, I misremember, and all of them short, as you say, my lord. He had been born in the dead of winter, a terrible cruel one that the masters. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Ipesa, A Game of Thrones. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Ipesa, A Game of Thrones. Book of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin, said had lasted near 3 years. The Tyron's earliest memories were of spring. When I was a boy, it was said that a long summer always meant a long winter to come. This summer has lasted 9 years. Tyron and a think will soon be upon us. Think on that. When I was a boy, Tyron replied, my wept nurse told me that one day, if men were good, the gods would give the world a summer without ending. Perhaps we have been better than we thought. Though the great summer is finally at hand, a grind, the Lord Commander did not seem amused. You are not fool enough to believe that, my lord. Already the days grow shorter. There came to be no mistake. Aemon has had letter from the citadel, finding in accord with his own. The end of summer stared us in the face. Marmor reached out and crushed Tyron tightly by the hand. You must have make them understand. I tell you, my lord, the darkness is coming. There are winds thin in the wood, dire wolves and mammoth, and snow bear the size of arrows, and I have seen darker shape in my dreams. In your dreams, Tyron echoes, thinking how badly he needed another strong drink. Marmor was deaf to the edge in his voice. The fisher folks near Eastwash have glimpsed White Walker on the shore. This time, Tyron could not hold his tongue. The fisher folks of Lannisport often glimpse Merlin, Dany Malista, right? that the mountain people are moving south, slipping past the shadow tower in numbers greater than ever before. They are running, my lord. They're running from what? Lord Mahmoud moved to the window and stared out into the night. These are old bones, Lannister, but they have never felt a chill like this. Tell the king what I say, I pray you. Winter is coming, and when the long nights fall, only the night watch will stand between the realm and the darkness that swept from the north. The gods help us all if we are not ready. The gods help me if I do not get some sleep tonight. Yoren is determined to ride at first light. Tyrion got to his feet sleepy from wine and tired of Sodom. I thank you for all the courtesy you have done me. Lord Mamo, tell them, Tyrion. Tell them and make them believe. That is all the thanks I need. We whistled and his raven flew to him and perched on his shoulder. Mahmoud smiled and gave the bird some corn from the pocket, and that was how Tyrion left him. It was bitter cold outside, bundled thickly in his fur. Tyrion Lannister pulled on his glove and nodded to the poor frozen French standing sentry outside the commander keep. He set off across the yard for his own chamber in the king's tower, walking as briskly as his leg could manage. Patch of snow and crushed beneath his feet as his boot broke the night crush, and his breath steamed before him like a banner. He shoved his hands into his armpits and walked faster, praying that Morek had remembered to warm his bed with hot bricks from the fire. Behind the king's tower, the wall glimmered in the light of the moon. Immense and mysterious, Tyrion stopped for a moment to look up at it, his leg ash of cold and haste. Suddenly, a strange madness took hold of him, a yearning to look once more of the end of the world. It would be his last chance. He thought tomorrow he would ride south, and he could not imagine why he would ever want to return to this frozen desolation. The king's tower was before him, with its promise of warm and a soft bed. Yet Tyrion found himself walking past it, towards the vast palisade of the walls. A wooden stair ascended the south face, a core and huge rough hair being sucked deep into the ice and frozen in place. Back and front it switched, clawing its legs were cramping too badly for him to even contemplate the ascent. He went instead to the iron cage beside the well, clambered with the walls to his back, long enough for Tyrion to begin to wonder why he was doing this. He had just about decided to forget a sudden wind and go to bed when the cage gave a jerk and began to ascend. He moved upward slowly by feet and started at first the more smoothly. The ground felt away beneath him. The cage swung and Tyrion wrapped his hand around the iron bars. He could feel the cold of the metal even through his glove. Mored had a fire burning in his room. He noted with approval, but the Lord Commander tower was dark. The old bear had more sense than he did. It seems then he was above the tower, still inching. His way upward, Castle Black lay below him. Etched in moonlight, you could see how stark and empty it was from up here. Windowless, keep scrubbing walls, courtyard choked with broken stone. Farther off, he could see the light of Mole Town. The little village half a league sat along the King's Road, and here and there the bright glitter of moonlight on water where ice streams descended from the mountain heights to cut across the plains. The rest of the world was a bleak emptiness of wind-swept hills and rocky fields spotted with snow. Finally, a thick voice behind him said, "7 hells, is it the dwarf?" And the cage jerked to a sudden stop and hung there, swinging slowly back and forth. A rope's creaking bring him in them. There was a grunt and a loud groaning of wood as the cage slunk sideways. And then the wall was beneath him. Tyrion waited until the swinging had stopped. before he pushed upon the cage door and swooped down onto the ice. A heavy finger in black was leaning in the witch, while a second held the cage with a gloved hand. Their faces were muffled in woolen scarf, so only their eyes shone, and they were plump with layers of wood and leather, black on black. And what will you be wanting this time of night? The one by the witch asked a last look. The men exchanged so glance. Look all you want. The other says, just have a care you don't fall off. Little man, the old bear would have her eyes. A small wooden shack stood under the great crane, and Tyrone saw the dull glow of a brazier and felt a brief gust of warmth when the witch men opened the door and went back inside. And then he was alone. It was bitterly cold up here, and the wind pulled out his cloth like an insistent lover. The top of the wall was wider than the King's Road often ways, so Tyrone had no fear of falling, although the footing was slicker than he would have liked. The brothers spread crushed stone across the walkway, but the weight of countless footsteps would met the walls beneath, so the ice would seem to grow around the grave, swallowing it, until the path was bare against and it was time to crush more stone. Still, it was nothing that Tyrone could not manage. He looked off to the east and west at the walls stretching before him, a vast white road with no beginning and no end and a dark abyss on either side. West he decided for no special reason, and he began to walk that way, following the pathway nearest the north edge, where the grave looked fresh, his bare chest were ruddy with the cold, and his leg complained more loudly with every step. But Tyrone ignored them. The wind swirled around him, grave crushed beneath his boots, while ahead the white ribbon followed the line of the hills, rising higher and higher until it was lost beyond the western horizon. He passed a massive catapult as tall as a city wall. Its base sunk deep into the wall. The throwing arm had been taken off for repair, and then forgotten. It lay there like a broken toy, half men embedded in the ice. On the far side of the catapult, a muffled voice called out a challenge. Who goes there? Tyrone stopped. If I had too long, I would freeze in place. John, he said as a shaggy pale shape slid towards him, silent and sniffed at his fur. Hello, ghost. Jon Snow moved closer. He looked bigger and heavier in his layer of fur and leather. The hook of his club pulled down over his face. Lannister, I said, yank loose the scarf to uncover his mouth. This is that last place I would have expected to see you. He carried a heavy spear tipped in iron, taller than he was, and a sword hung at his side in a leather sheath. Across his chest was a gleaming black war horn, studded with silver. This is the last place I would have expected to be seen. Tyrone admitted, I was captured by wind. If I touch ghosts, will he shoot my hand off? Not with me here, Jon promised. Tyrone scratched the white wolf behind the ear. The red eyes watched him impassive. The beast caught up as high as his chest now. Another years, and Tyrone had the gloaming feeling. He had been looking up at him. What are you doing? What are you doing up here tonight? He asked, besides freezing your manhood off. I have drawn night guard, Jon said. Again, Sir Lisa has kindly arranged for the watch commander to take a special interest in me. He seems to think that if they keep me awake half the night, I will fall asleep during morning drill. So far I have disappointed him. Tyrone grinned, and as Ghost learned to juggle, yet not, said Jon, smiling, but Grain had his own against Ada this morning, and Peel is no longer dropping his sword quite so often as he did. Paper is renamed the small boy with the large ears. He saw me walking with Grain and asked for help. Don had never even showed him the proper way to grip his sword. He turned to look north. I have a smile of war to guard. Will you walk with me? If you walk slowly, Tyron said. The watch commander tells me I must walk to keep my blood from freezing, but he never said how fast. They walked with Ghost pacing along beside Jones like a white shadow. I live on the Marrow, Tyron said. I know. John sounded strangely sad. I plan to stop a Winterfell on the way. Sad. If there is any message that you would like me to deliver, tell Rob that I am going to command the night watch and keep him safe. So he might as well taken up little walks with the girls and have Mickey met down the sword for horseshoes. Your brother is bigger than me, Tyron said with a laugh. I decline to deliver any message that might get me killed. Rickon will ask when I am coming home. Try to explain where I am gone. If you can, tell him he can have all my things while I am away. He will like that. People seems to be asking a great deal of him today. Tyron Lannister thought you could put all this in a letter. You know, Rickon can read yet. Brown. He stopped suddenly and I don't know what message to send to Brown. Help him, Tyron. What help could I give him? I am no master. I ease pain. I have no spell to give him back his leg. You gave me help when I needed it. Jon Snow said, I gave you nothing. Tyron said, words. Then give your words to Bran too. You are asking a lame man to teach a cripple how to dance? Tyron said, however, sincere the lesson, the result is likely to be grotesque. Still, I know what it is to love a brother, Lord Snow. I will give Bran whatever small help is in my power. Thank you, my lord of Lannister. He pulled off his glove and offered his bare hand. Friend Tyron found himself oddly touched. Most of my kin are bastards, he said with a weary smile. But you are the first I have to friend. He pulled a glove off with his teeth and clapped Snow by the hands, flesh against flesh. The boy's grip was firm and strong. When he had done his glove again, Jon Snow turned abruptly and walked to the low ice northern parapet. Beyond him the wall fell away sharply. Beyond him there was only the darkness and the wind. Tyron followed him and said side by side they stood upon the edge of the wall. The night watch permitted the forest to come not closer than half a mile of the north face of the wall. The thick of ironwood and sentinel and oak that had once grown there had been harvested centuries ago, to create a broad sward of open ground through which no enemies could hope to pass unseen. Tyron had heard that elsewhere. Along the walls between the three fortresses, the wind would and creeping back over the decades that there were places where grain sentinel and pale white wood had taken root in the shadow of the walls himself. But Castle Black had a prodigious appetite for firewood, and yet the forest was still kept at bay by the axe of the Black brothers. It was never thought from up the air. Tyron could see it, the dark trees looming beyond the street of open ground, like a second wall built parallel to the first, a wall of night few eyes had ever swung in the black wood, where even the moonlight could not penetrate the ancient tangle of the roots and thorns and grasping leaves. And there the trees grew huge, and the ranger said, they seemed to brood and knew not men. It was small wonders in the night watch, named in its haunted forest. As he stood there and looked at all that darkness with no fires burning anywhere, with the wind blowing and the cold like a spear in his gut, Tyron Lannister felt as though he could almost believe the talk of the others, the enemy in the night. His joke of grandkins and snack no longer seems quite so dropped. My uncle is at there, Jon Snow said softly, leaning on his spear as he stared off into the darkness. The first night they sent me up here, I thought Uncle Benjamin will ride back tonight. and I will see him first and blow the horn. He never came, although not that night and not any night. Give him time, Tyron said. Far off to the north, a wolf began to howl. Another voice picked up the call. Then another. Ghost shook his head and listened. If he does not come back, Jon Snow promised, Ghost and I will go find him. He put his hand on the dire wolf's head. I believe you. Tyron said, but what he thought was, and who will go find you? He shivered. Next, Arya, her father, had been fighting with the council again. Arya could see it on his face when he came to table late again, as he had been so often. The first course, a thick, sweet soup made with pumpkins, had already been taken away when Ned Stark strode into the small hall. They called it that to set it apart from the great hall where the kings could feast 1,000, but it was a long room with a high-vaulted ceiling and bench space for 200 and it trestle tables. My lord, Jory said. When father entered, he rose to his feet, and the rest of the guard rose with him. Each man wore a new claw, every grey wool with a white satin border. A hand of beaten silver clutched the woolen fold of each claw, and marked their wearers as men of the hands, as old guard. There were only 50 of them, so most of the benches were empty. Be seated, Eddard Stark said. I see you have stated with me. I am pleased to know there are still some men of sense in this city. He signaled for the meal to resume. The servant began bringing out platter of ribs roasted in a crust of garlic and herbs. The talk in the yard is we shall have a tourney, my lord, Jory said as he resumed his seat. They say that night will come from all over the realm to joust and feast in honor of your appointment as Hand of the King. Arya could see that her father was not very happy about that. Do they also say this is the last thing in the world? I would have wished. Sansa's eyes had grown wide as the plate. Tony, she breathed. She was seated between Septa Morden and Jane, pulled as far from Arya as she could get without drawing a reproach from father. We permitted to go. Father, you know my feelings. Sansa, it seems I must arrange Robert games and pretend to be honored for his sake. That does not mean I must subject my daughter to this folly. Oh, please, Sansa said, I want to see. Septa Morden spoke up. Princess Myrcella will be there, my lord, and are younger than Lady Sansa. All the ladies of the court will be expected at a grand event like this, and as the tourney is in your honor, it would look queer if your family did not attend. Father looked pained. I suppose so. Very well. I shall arrange a place for you, Sansa. He saw Arya. For both of you. I don't care about their stupid tourney. Arya said. She knew Prince Joffrey would be there, and she hated Prince Joffrey. Sansa lifted her head. It will be a splendid event. You shall not be wanted. Anger flashed across father's face. Enough! Sansa, more of that, and you will change my mind. I am weary unto death of this endless war. You two are fighting. You are sisters. I expect you to behave like sisters. Is that understood? Sansa bit her lips and nodded. Arya lowered her face to stare solemn at her plate. She could feel tears stinging her eyes. She rubbed them away angrily, determined not to cry. The only sound was the clatter of knives. Her folks pray, excuse me. Our father announced to the table, I find I have small appetite tonight. He walked from the hall. After he was gone, Sansa exchanged incited whisper with Jane. Pulled down the table, Jory laughed at a joke, and always started in our ass flesh. Your war horses now, he may not be the best one for the just. Not the same thing. Oh no, not the same at all. The men had heard it all before. Desmond Jack and Olen's son Arwen shouted him down together and Porter called for more wine. No one talked to Arya. She did not care. She liked it that way. She would have eaten her meal alone in her bench chamber if they let her. Sometimes they did. When father had to dine with the kings or some lord or the heavens from this place or that place, the rest of the time they ate in his solar, just him and her and Sansa. That was when Arya missed her brother most. She wanted to tease Bran and play with baby Rickon and have Robb smile at her. She wanted Jon to mousse up her hair and call her little sister and finish her sentence with her. But all of them were gone. She had no one left but Sansa, and Sansa would not even talk to her unless father made her. Back at Winterfell, they had eaten in the great hall almost half the time. Her father used to say that a lord needed to eat with his men if he hoped to keep them. Know the men who followed you, she heard him tell Robb once, and let them know you. Don't ask your men to die for a stranger. At Winterfell, he always had an extra seat set at his own table, and every day, different man would be asked to join him. One night it would be Veyon food, and the talk would be copper and bread stores and servants. The next time it would be Mikkel, and her father would listen to him go on about armor and sword and all aught a forge should be, and the best way to temper steel. Another day it might be all in with his endless horse stock, or scepter carried from the library, or Jory or Cedric, or even Odna with Astorin. Arya had loved nothing better than to sit at her father's table and listen to them talk. She had loved listening to the men on the bench too, to free riders taught as leather, courtly knights and bold young Swiss grizzled old men at arms. She used to throw snowballs at them and help them steal pies from the kitchen. Their wives gave her scorn, and the sheep invented names for their babies and played monsters and maidens and hid the treasures and come into my castle with their children. Falcon used to call her Arya on the underfoot because he said that was where she always was. She liked that a lot better than Arya us face. Only that was Winterfell, a word away, and now everything was changed. This was the first time they had suspected with the men since arriving in King's Landing. Arya hated it. She hated the sound of their voice. Now the way they laughed, the stories they told. They had been a friend. She felt safe around them. But now she knew that was a lie. They didn't let the queen kill Lady. That was horrible enough. But the Huns found Maker. Jaime Poole had told Arya that he had cut him up in so many pieces that they given him back to the butcher in a bag. And at first the poor man had thought it was a pig they slaughtered, and no one had raised a voice or drawn a blade or anything. Not Arwen, who always talked so bold, or Alyn, who was going to be a knight, or Jory, who was captain of the guard. Not even her father. He was my friend, Arya whispered into her plate, so low that no one could hear. Her ribs sat there untouched, grew cold now, a thin feel of wrist cuddling beneath them on the plate. Arya looked at them and felt tear. She pushed away from the table. Pray, where do you think you are going? Young lady, Septa Morden asked. I am not angry. Arya found it an effort to remember her courtesy. May be excused, please. She recited stiffly. You may not. The Septa said, you have scarcely touched your food. You will sit down and clean your plate. You clean it before anyone could stop her. Arya bolted for. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Igbesa, A Game of Thrones. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Igbesa, A Game of Thrones. Book of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin. The door as the men laughed, and Septa Morden called loudly after her. Her voice rising higher and higher. Fatun was at his post, guarding the door to the tower of the ant. He blinked when he saw Arya rushing towards him and heard the scepter shout, "Yes now, little one, hold on." He started to say, reaching, but Arya slid between his leg, and then she was running up the window, winding towards step. Her feet hammering on the stone while fat tongues off and puff behind her. Her bed chamber was the only place that Arya liked in all of King's Landing, and the thing she liked the best about it was the door, a massive slab of dark oak with black iron bar. When she slapped that door and dropped the heavy crossbar, nobody could get into her room. Not Scepter Morden or Fat Tongue or Censor or Jury or the Aunts. Nobody. She slammed it now. When the bar was down, Arya finally felt safe enough to cry. She went to the window seat and sat there, sniffing, eating them all. And herself, most of all, it was all her fault. Everything bad that had happened. Sansa said so, and then too, Fat Tongue was knocking on her door. "Arya girl, what's wrong?" he called out. You in there?" "No," she shouted. The knocking stopped. A moment later, she heard him going away. Fat Tongue was always easy to fool. Arya went to the chest at the foot of her bed. She kneeled and opened the lids and began to pulling her cloth out with both hands, grabbing handful of silk and satin and velvet and wool and tossing them on the floor. It was there at the bottom of the chest where she did eating it. Arya lifted it out almost tenderly and drew the slender blade from its sheathed needle. She thought of Micah again, and her eyes filled with tears. Her fault. If she had never asked him to play at sword with her. There was a pounding at her door, louder than before. Arya started. "You open this door at once. Do you hear me?" Arya spun around with needles in her hand. "You better not come in here," she warned. She slashed at the air savagely. The hand will hear of this. Scepter Morden regard, rage. "I don't care," Arya screamed. "Go away. You will ruin this insolent behavior. Young lady, I promise you that." Arya listened at the door until she heard the sound of the scepter receiving footsteps. She went back to the window, needle in hand, and looked down into the courtyard below. If only she could climb like Bran. She thought she would go out the window and down the tower, run away from this horrible place, away from Sansa and Scepter Morden, and Prince Joffrey, from all of them, steal some food from the kitchen, take needle and a good boot and a warm cloth. She could find Nymeria in the wildwood below the trident. Together they returned to Winterfell or run to Jon on the walls. She found herself wishing that Jon was here with her now. Then maybe she would feel so alone. A soft knock at the door behind her turned Arya away from the windows and her dream of escape. "Arya," a father voice called out. "Open the door. We need to talk." Arya crossed the room and lifted the crossbar. Father was alone. Seems more sad than angry. That made Arya feel even worse. "May I come in?" Arya nodded, then dropped her eyes, ashamed. Father closed the door. Whose sword is that? Mine? Arya had almost forgotten needle in her hand. "Give it to me." Reluctantly, Arya surrendered her sword, wondering if she would ever hold it again. Her father turned it in the light, examining both sides of the blade. He tested the point with his tongue. "A broken blade," he said, "yet it seems to me that I know this mark is the maker's sword." Arya could not lie to him. She lowered her eyes. "Lord Eddard Stark says my 9-year-old daughter is being armed from my own forge, and I know nothing of it. Hand of the king expected to rule 7 kingdoms, yet it seems I cannot even rule my own household. How is it that you come to own a sword. Arya, where did you get this? Arya chewed her lips and said nothing. She would not betray John, not even to their father. After a while, father said, I don't suppose to. It matters. Truly, he looked down gravely at the sword in his hand. This is not toy for children, least of all for a girl. What would Septa Mother say if she knew you were playing with sword? Say, I was not playing. Arya insisted. I ate Septa Mother. That is enough. Her father's voice was cut and hard. The scepter is doing no more than is our duty. Though God knows you have made it a struggle for the poor woman, your mother and I have changed her with the impossible task of making you a lady. I do not want to be a lady. Arya flared. I ought to snap this toy across my knees, here and now, and put an end to this nonsense. Needlework will not break, Arya said defiantly, but her voice betrayed her words. It has a name, does it? Her father said. Ah, Arya, you have a wildness in you, child. The wolf blood, my father used to call it. Lina had a touch of it, and my brother Brandon more than a touch. It brought them both to an early grave. Arya heard sadness in his voice. He did not often speak of his father, or often the brother and sister who had died before she was born. Lina might have carried a sword if my lord father had allowed it. You remind me of her sometimes. You even look like her. Lina was beautiful. Arya said, startled. Everybody said so. It was not a thing that was ever said of Arya. She was Edda Stark, agreed, beautiful and willful, and dead before her time. He lifted the sword, held it out between them. Arya, what did you think to do with this? Needle, who did you hope to skewer? Your sister, Septa Mother? Do you know the first thing about sword fighting? All she could think of was the lesson John had given her. Stick them with the pointy end. She blunted out. Her father snook back laughter. That is the essence of it. I suppose Arya desperately wanted to explain, to make him see I was trying to learn, but her eyes filled with tears. I asked Micah to practice with me. The grief came on her all at once. She turned away. Shaking, I asked him. She cried. It was my fault. It was me. Suddenly her father's arms were around her. He held her gently as she turned to him, and sober against his chest. No, sweet one, he murmured, grieve for your friend, but never blame yourself. You did not kill the butcher boy. That mother lies at the aunt's door. Him and the cruel woman, he says. I ate them. Maria, confident, red face, sniffled. The aunt and the queen and the king and the prince Joffrey. I ate all of them. Joffrey lied. It was not the way it was not the way it was. He said. I ate Sansa too. She did remember. She just lied so Joffrey would like her. We all lie. Our father said. Or did you truly think I believed that Nimrod ran off? Arya blushed gently. Jory promised not to tell. Jory keep his word. Our father said with a smile, there are some things I do not need to be told. Even a blind man could see that Wolf would never have left you winning. We had to throw rock, she said miserably. I told her to run, to go be free, that I did not want her anymore. There were other wolves for her to play with. We heard them howling, and Jory said, the wolves were full of games. So she did her there to hunt. Only she kept following, and finally we had to throw rock. I hit her twice. She whined and looked at me, and I felt so ashamed. But it was right, was not it? The queens would have killed her. It was right, her father said, and even the lie was not without honor. He did put Nido aside when he went to Arias to embrace her. Now he took the blade up against and walked to the window. There he stopped for a moment, looking out across the courtyard. When he turned back, his eyes were thoughtful. He seated himself on the window seat, Nido across his lap. Arias, sit down. I need to try and explain some things to you. She perched anxiously on the edge of her bed. You are too young to be burdened with all my cares. He told her, but you are also a Stark of Winterfell. You know a word, winter is coming. Arya whispered. The uncorrect time, for her father said, we tasted them on the trident, child. And when Bran felt you were born in the long summer, sweet one, you have never known anything else. But now the winter is truly coming. Remember the siege of our house, Arya, these dire wolves. She said, thinking of Nymeria. She hugged her knees against her chest. Suddenly afraid, let me tell you something about wolves. Child, when the snow falls and the white wind blows, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Summer is the time for scramble. In winter we must protect one another, keep each other warm, share our strength. So if you must hate, Arya hates those who would truly do us harm. Septa mother is a good woman, and Sansa is your sister. You may be as different as the sun and the moon, but the same blood flows through both your hearts. You need her as she needs you, and I need both of you. God help me. He sounded so tired that it made Arya sad. I don't hate Sansa, she told him, not truly. It was only half a lie. I do not mean to frighten you, but neither will I lie to you. We have come to a dark, dangerous place. Child, this is not Winterfell. We have enemies who mean us ill. We cannot fight a war among ourselves. This willfulness of yours, the running off, the angry word, the disobedience at home, these were only the summer game of the child. Here now, with winter soon upon us, that a different matter, it is time to begin growing up. I will, Arya vow. She had never loved him so much as she did in that instant. I can be strong too. I can be as strong as Rob. He held Nido out to her. It first, yeah. She looked at the sword with wonder in her eyes. For a moment she was afraid to touch it, afraid that if she reached for it, it would be snatched away again. But then her father said, go on, it's yours. And she took it in her hand. I can keep it, she said. For true. He smiles. If I took it away, know that I will find a morning star hidden under your pillow within the fortnight. Try not to stab your sister, whatever the provocation. I would not. I promise. Arya clutched Nido tightly to her chest as her father took his leave. The next morning, as they broke their fast, she apologized to Septa's mother and asked for her pardon. The Septa peered at it suspiciously. That father nodded. 3 days later, at midday, her father, steward Vion Poole, sent Arya to the small hall. The trestle table had been dismantled, and the bench shoved against the wall. The hall seems empty until an unfamiliar voice said, "You are late, boy." A slight man with a bare head and a great beak of a nose stepped out of the shadow, holding a pair of a slender wooden sword. "Tomorrow you will be here at midday." He had an accent, the elite of the free cities. "Bravo, perhaps, or might. Who are you?" Arya asked. I am your dancing master." He told her one of the wooden blades. She grabbed for it, missed, and heard it clatter to the floor. "Tomorrow you will." Catched it, now picked it up. It was not just a stitch, but a true wooden sword, complete with grips and guard.
pommels, Arya picked it up and clutched it nervously with both hands, holding it out in front of her. It was heavier than it looked, much heavier than needle. The boy man clenched his teeth together. That is not the way, boy. This is not a great sword. That is needing 2 hands to swing it. You will take the blade in 1 hand. It is too heavy, Arya said. It is heavy as it needs to be to make you strong. And for balancing, allowed inside is filled with lead. Just so. 1 hand now is all that is needed. Arya took her right hand off the grip and wiped her sweaty palm on her pants. She held the sword in her left hand. He seems to approve. The left is sword. All is reserved. It will make your enemies more awkward. Now you are standing wrong. Turn your body beside face. Yes, so you are skinny as the shaft of a spear. Do you know? That is good too. The target is smaller. Now the grip. Let me see. He moved closer and pierced at her hand, praying her finger apart, rearranging them just so. Yes, don't squeeze it so tight. No, the grip must be delicate. What if I dropped it? Arya said, the steel must be part of your arms. The barman told her, can you drop part of your arms? No, 9 years. Serious forehead was first sword. The sea lord of bravos, he knows these things. Listen to him, boy. It was the 3rd time he had called her boy. I am a girl, Arya objected. Boy, girl, Serial, Forrest said. You are a sword, that is all. He clicked his teeth together, just so that his grip. You are not holding a battle axe. You are holding a needle. Arya finished for him fiercely. Just so. Now we will begin this dance. Remember, child, this is not the iron dance of Westeros. We are learning the 9th dance. Akin and Amrin, no. This is the bravo dance. Water dance, swift and sudden. All men are made of water. Do you know this? When you pierce them, the water leaked out and they died. He took a step backward, raised his own wooden blade. Now you will try to strike me. Arya tried to strike him. She tried for 4 hours until every muscle in her body was sore and cheesy. Why? She was first click his teeth together and told her what to do. The next day, the real work began. Next, the dynasty, the Dothraki sea. Ser Jorah Mormont said as he ran to a harp beside her on the top of the ridge. Beneath them, the plain stretched out immense and empty, a vast flat expanse that reached to the distant horizon. And beyond it was a sea. Then it thought past the air. There were no hills, no mountains, no trees, no cities, no road, only the endless grasses, the tall blades rippling like waves when the wind blew. It's so green, she said. Yeah, and now, Ser Jorah agreed. You ought to see it when it blooms, and dark red flowers from horizon to horizon, like a seal of blood. Come the 3rd season, and the world turns the color of old bronze, and this is only Arana, child. There are 100 kinds of grass out there. Grass is as yellow as lemon and as dark as indigo. Blue grasses and red orange grasses and grass like rainbow. Down in the shadowland beyond Asher, they say there are oceans of ghost grass, taller than a man or horseback, with tall as pale as milk glass. It mother all other grass and glow in the dark with the spirits of the damned. The Dothraki claim that someday ghost grass will cover the entire world, and then all life will end. That though gave Dany this shiver. I don't want to talk about that now. She said, it's so beautiful. Yeah. I don't want to think about everything dying. As you will, Khaleesi, Ser Jorah said respectfully. She This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Ibesa, A Game of Thrones. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Ibesa, A Game of Thrones. Book of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Heard the sound of voice and turned to look behind her. She and her murmured at distance the rest of their party, and now the others were climbing the ridge below them. Our handmaid Irene and the young usher of our caste were fluid as cetrals, but Vistry still struggled with the short stirrup and the flat saddle. Our brother was miserable. He ought never have come. Magister Ilorius had urged him to wait in Pentos and offered him the hospitality of his mans, but Vistry would have none of it. He would stay with Dragon until the debts had been paid, until he had the crown he had been promised, and if he tried to cheat me, he will learn to his sorrow what it means to wake the dragon. Vistry had vowed, laying a hand on his borrowed sword. Hilarion had blinked at that and wished him good fortune. Then he realized that she did not want to listen to any of her brother's complaint right now. The day was too perfect. The sky was a deep blue, and the eye above them a haunting upward circle. The grass sea swag and sagged with each breath of wind. The air was warm on her face, and then he felt at peace. She would not let Vistry spoil it. Wait here, Danny told Sir Joram. Tell them all to stay. Tell them I command it. The night smelled. Sir Joram was not a handsome man. He had a neck and shoulder like a bull, and coarse black hair covered his arm and chest so thickly that there was none left for him. His head. Yet his smile gave Danny comfort. You are learning to talk like a queen. Danistry, not a queen, said Danny. A Khaleesi. She wheeled her horse about and galloped down the ridge alone. The descent was steep and rocky, but Danny rode fearlessly, and the joy and the danger of it were a song in her heart. All her life Vistry had told her she was a princess, but not until she rode her silver had Danistry Targaryen ever felt like one. At first it had not come easy. The Khaleesi had broken camp the morning after her wedding, moving east towards Vas Dorak, and by the third day Danny thought she was going to die. Saddle swords opened on her baton, idiot and bloody. Her teeth were sharp raw, her hand glittered from the reins, the muscle of her legs and back to rack with pains that she could scarcely sit. By the time dusk fell, her handmaid would need to help her down from the mount. Even the night brought to relief. Khal Drogo ignored her way they rode, even as he had ignored her during their wedding, and spent his evening drinking with his warriors and blood riders, raising his prize horse and watching women dance and men die. Danny had no place in this part of his life. She was left to sup alone, or with Sir Joram and her brother, and afterward to cry herself to sleep. Yet, every night, sometime before the dawn, Dragon would come to her tent and wake her in the dark, to ride her as restlessly as a rode his stallion. He always took her from behind, the Raki fashion for which Danny was grateful. That was her lord husband could not see the tears that went her face, and she could use the pillow to muffle her cries of pain. When he was done, he would close his eyes and begin to snore softly, until Danny knew she could not enjoy a moment longer. She would kill herself rather than go on, she decided one night. Yet, when she slept that night, she dreamed the dragon dream again. Vestry was not in it this time. There was only her and the dragon. Its scales were black as night,
went and slick with blood. Her blood, Danny sensed its eyes were popped of molten magma, and when it opened its mouth, the flame came roaring out in a hot jet. She could hear a clean flame roaring out in the hot jet. She could hear it singing to her. She opened her arms to the fire, embraced it, let it swallow her whole, let it cleanse her and temper her and scold her clean. She could feel her flesh sear and black and slugged away, could feel her blood boil and turn to steel, and yet there was no pain. She felt strong and new and fierce. And the next day, strangely, she did not seem to hurt quite so much. It was if the gods had heard her and taken pity. Even her handmaid noticed the change. Khaleesi, Joquin, said, "What is wrong? Are you sick?" "I was," she answered, standing over the dragon's head that Elorius had given her when she wed. She touched one, the largest of the three, running her hand slightly over the sheet, black and scalet. She thought like the dragon in my dream. The stone felt strangely warm beneath her fingers. Or was she still dreaming? She pulled her hand back nervously. From that hour onward, each day was easier than the one before it. Her legs grew stronger, her blister burst, and her hands grew callous. Her soft teeth, tough, supple as leather. The car had commanded the handmaid Irene to teach Danny to ride in the Doraki's fashion, but it was the Fitli who was her real teacher. The horse seemed to know her mood as if they shared a single mind. With every passing day, Danny felt surer in her seat. The Doraki were a hard and unsentimental people, and it was not their custom to name their animals, so Danny thought of her only as the silver. She had never loved anything so much. As the riding became less an ordeal, Danny began to notice the beauty of the land around her. She rode at the head of the Khaleesi with Dragon and his blood rider, so she came to each country fresh and unspoiled. Behind them, the great horde might tear the earth and muddy the rivers and send up clouds of shocking dust. But the field ahead of them were always green and fervent. They crossed the rolling hills of Novus, past terrace, farm, and small village. There the townsfolk watched anxiously. From atop white Stockholm walls, they forded three wide, placid river and a fourth that was swift and narrow and treacherous, camped beside a high blue waterfall. They scattered the tumble ruins of a washed, dead city. Their ghosts were said to mourn among blackened marble columns. They reached down Valeria Road, 1,000 years old, and straight as a Doraki arrow. For half a moon, they rode through the forest of Kual. There the leaves made a golden canopy. High above them, and the trunk of the trees were as wide as city gate. There were great hills in that wood, and spotted tiger and lemon with silver falls and huge purple eyes, that all fled before the approach of the Khaleesi, and Danny got no glimpse of them. By then her agony was a fading memory. She still ashed after a long day riding, yet somehow the pain had a sweetness to it. Now and each morning she came willingly to her saddle, eager to know what wonders waited for her in the land ahead. She began to find pleasure even in her night, and if she still cried at when Dragon took her, it was not always in pain. At the bottom of the ridge, the grass rose around her, tall and supple. Danny slowed to a trot and rode out onto the plain. losing herself in the green, blessedly alone in the Kalisa. She was never alone. Car Dragon came to her only after the sun went down, but her handmaid fed her and bathed her and slept by the door of her tent. Dragon Blood Rider and the men of her caste were never far, and her brother was an unwelcome shadow day and night. Danny could hear him on the top of the ridge, his voice shrilled with anger as he shouted at Sajura. She rode on, submerging herself deep in the Doraki Sea. The green swallowed her up. The air was rich with the scent of earth and grass, mixed with the smell of horse flesh, and that is sweet and the oil hair. Doraki smell, it seems to belong here. Then he breathed it all in laughing. She had a sudden urge to feel the ground beneath her, to curl her toes in that thick black soil, swinging down from her saddle. She let the silver grave wipe. She pulled off her high boot. Vesri came upon her as sudden as a summer storm, his horse rearing beneath him as he ran up to her. You there? He screamed at her. You give command to me. To me. He vaulted off the horse, stumbling at the landing. His face was flushed as the struggle back to his feet. He grabbed her, shook her. Have you forgotten who you are? Look at you. Look at you. Then he did not need to look. She was barefoot with oil hair, wearing the Raki's riding leather and a painted vest given her from some horse slot. Do you hear me? His hand went under her vest, his finger digging painfully into her breast. Do you hear me? Then he shoved him away. Adversary stared at her, his lilac eyes incredulous. She had never defied him, never fought back. Rage twisted his future. He would hurt her now, and badly. She knew that. Crack, the whip made a sound like a thunder. The coil took Vestry around the throat and yanked him backward. He went prowling in the grass, stunned and choking. The Doraki riders whooped at him as he struggled to free himself. The one with the whip, young Jogo, raps a question. Danny did not understand his word, but by then Irene was dead, and Sajuran and the rest of our cast. Jago asked if you would have him dead. Kalisi. Irene said no. Danny replies no. Jago understood that. One of the other baked at a comment, and the Doraki laughed. Irene told her, Koran think you should take an ear to teach him respect. Her brother was on his knees, his finger digging under the leather coil, crying incoherently, struggling for breath. The whip was tight around his wide pipe. Tell them I don't witch him harm. Danny said. Irene repeated her words in Doraki. Jagon gave a pull on the whip, yanking Vestry around like a puppet on a string. He went sprawling again, freed from the leather, embraced a thing like of blood under his chin. Yet the whip had cut deep. I warned him what would happen, my lady. Sajura murmured said, I told him to stay on the ridge, as you commanded. I know you did, Danny replied, washing Vestry. He laid on the ground, sucking in air noisily, red-faced and sobbing. He was pitifully thin. He had always been a pitiful thing. Why had she never seen that before? There was a hollow place inside her where her fear had been. Take his horse, Danny commanded Joram. Vestry gasped at her. He could not believe what he was hearing. Nor could Danny quite believe what she was saying. Yet the word came. Let my brother walk behind us back the Khalistan. Among the Doraki, the man who does not ride was not man at all. The lowest of the low, without honor or pride. Let everyone see him as he is. No, Vestry screamed. He turned to Sir Joram, pleading in the common tongue with what the horsemen would not understand. Eat her, mammoth, hurt her. Your kings commanded. Kill these Doraki dogs and teach her. The Esai knight looked from Danny to her brother. She barefoot with death between her toes and oil in her hair. He with his sink and steel. Danny could see decision on his face. He shall walk, Khaleesi, he said. He took her brother horse in hand while Danny remounted her silver. Vestry gasped at him and sat down in death. He kept his silence, but he would not move, and his eyes were full of poison as they rode away. Soon he was lost in the tall grass when they could not see him anymore. Danny grew afraid. Will he find his way back? She asked Sir Joram as they rode. Even a man as blind as your brother should be able to follow our trace. He replied, he is proud. He may be too ashamed to come back. Joram laughed. Where else should he go? If you cannot find the Khaleesi will most surely find him. It's hard to draw in the Doraki Sea. Child, Danny saw the truth of that. The Khaleesi was like a city on the march, but it did not march blindly. Always caught range far ahead of the main column, alert for any sign of game or prey or enemies, while outriders guarded their flank. They missed nothing, not here in this land, the place where they had come from. This plain were a part of them, and of her. Now I eat him, she said, wonder in her voice. Now that it was over, it seems like some strange dreams that she had dreamed. Sir Joram, do you think he will be so angry when he gets back? She shivered. I awoke the dragon, don't I? Sir Joram snorted. Can you wake the dead? Girl, your brother Rhaegar was the last dragon, and he died on the trident. Vestry is less than the shoulder of a snake. His blunt words startled her. It seems as though all the things she had always believed were suddenly called into question. You swore him your sword. That I did, yeah? Sir Joram said. And if your brother is the shadow of a snake, what does that make his servant? His voice was bitter. He is still the true king. He is. Joram pulled up his horse and looked at her. Truth now, would you want to see Vestry sit at throne? Danny thought about that. He would not be a very good king, would he? There have been worse, but not many. The knight had gave him heels to his mount and started off again. Danny rode close beside him. Still, she said, the common people are waiting for him. Magister Elorius says they are sewing dragon's banner and praying for Vestry to return from across the narrow sea to free them. The common people pray for rain, healthy children, and a summer that never ends. Sir Joram told her it is no matter to them if the High Lords play their games of throne. So long as they are left in peace. He gave a shrug. They never are. Then he rode along quietly for a time, walking his sword like a puzzle boss. It went against everything that Vestry had ever told her to think that the people could care little whether a true king or a usurper reigned over them. Yet the more she thought on Joram's sword, the more the range of truth. What do you pray for, Sir Joram? She asked him. Home, he said. His voice was thick with longing. I pray for home too. She told him, believing it. Sir Joram laughed. Looked around you then, Khaleesi. But it was not the plain Danny saw them. It was King Landing and the great red keep that Aegon the Conqueror had built. It was Dragonstone where she had been born. In her mind's eyes they burned with 1,000 lights, a fire blazing in every window. In her mind's eyes all the doors were red. My brother will never take back the Seven Kingdoms. Then he said she had known that for a long time. She realized she had known it all her life. Only she had never let herself say the words, even in a whisper. But now she said them for Joram's murmur and all the world to hear. Sir Joram gave her a measuring look. You think not, he could not lead an army, even if my lord husband gave him one. Danny said he has no coin, and the holy knight who followed him reviled him as less than a snake. The Duraki make mock of his weakness. He will never take us home. Wise child, the knight smiled. I am no child, she told him fiercely, and he pressed into the side of her mouth, rousing the silver to a gallop, fast and fast. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Ipesa, A Game of Thrones. This is a Lazy Eye audiobook production read by Kenneth Ipesa, A Game of Thrones. Book of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin. The knight smiled. I am no child, she told him fiercely. Her heels pressed into the sides of her mouth, raising the silver to a gallop. Faster and faster she raced, leaving Joram and Iron and the other far behind, the warm wind in her hair and the setting sun red on her face. By the time she reached the Calasa, it was dusk. The slaves had erected a tent by the shore of a spring-fed pool. She could hear rough voice from the woven grass pass on the hills. Soon there should be laughter when the men of her cars told the story of what had happened in the grass today. By the time vestry came leaping back among them, every man, woman, and child in the camp would know him for a worker. There were no secrets in the Calasa. Then he gave the silver over to the slave for roaming, and entered a tent. It was cold and dim beneath the sea. As she let the door flap close behind her, then he saw a finger of duty of dusty red light reached out to touch her dragon eggs across the tent. For an instant, 1,000 droplets of scarlet flame swam before her eyes. She blinked, and they were gone. Stone, she told herself. They are all stone. Even Eloros said so. The dragons are all dead. She put her palm against the black egg, finger spread gently across the cave of the shell. The stone was warm, almost hot. The sun, then a whisper, the sun warmed them as they rode. She commanded her handmaid to prepare her a bath. Dorian lit a fire outside the tent, while Iron and Jacqueline fetched a big copper to another bread gift from the pack horses and carried water from the pool. When the bath was steaming, Iron helped her into it and climbed in after her. Have you ever seen a dragon? She asked as Iron scrubbed her back and Jacqueline sliced and from her hair. She had heard that the first dragon had come from the east, from the showdown land beyond Asher and the island of the Jade Sea. Perhaps while we are still living there, in realms strange and wild, dragons are gone. Khaleesi, Iron said, dead. Agreed Jacqueline? Long and along. Vestry had told her that the last Targaryen dragon had died no more than a century and a half ago, during the reign of Aegon III, who was called the Dragonborn. That did not seem so long ago to Dany. Everywhere, she said, disappointed, even in the east. Magic had died in the west when the doom fell on Valyria and the land of the long summer. And neither Spellforge, still nor storm singers, nor dragons could hold it back. But Dany had always heard that the east was different. It was said that manticores prowled the island of the Jade Sea, that basilic infested the jungle of Aitin, and spell singers, warlocks, and Aramasa practiced their art openly in Asia. While Shadowbinder and Blue Mage walked terribly sorcerers in the black of night. Should not be dragon too. No dragon, Harry said. Brave men kill them. For dragon, terrible evil beast. It is known. It is known. Agreed, Jacqueline. A trader from Quark once told me that dragons came from the moon. Blonde Doria said as she warmed a towel over the fire. Jacqueline and I were of an age with Dany. The Iraqi girls take as slave when dragons destroyed their father's Khalasa. Dorian was old, almost 20. Magister Laurent had found her in a pleasure house in life. Slivering's wet hair stormed across her eyes as Danny turned her head, curious. The moon, he told me the moon was an egg palisade. The lies girl said once there were 2 moons in the sky, but one wandered too close to the sun and cracked from the heat. A thousand dragons poured forth and drank the fire of the sun. That is why dragon's breath flame. One day the other moon will kiss the sun too, and then it will crack and the dragon will return. The 2 Doraki girls giggled and laughed. You are foolish, straw-haired slave. Iris said, moon is no egg, moon is God. Woman, wife of sun, it is known, Jacqueline. Agreed, Danny's skin was flush and pink when she climbed from the tomb. Jacqueline laid her down to oil her body and scrape the dirt from her pores. After Irene sprinkled her with spice flour and cinnamon, while Doria brushed her hair until it shone like spun silver. She thought about the moon and eggs and dragons. Her supper was a single meal of fruit and cheese and fried bread, with jugs of honey wine to wash it down. Let us stay and eat with me, Danny commanded when she sent her other handmaid away. The light seagull had hair the color of honey, and eye like the summer sky. She lowered those eyes when they were alone. You honor me, Kalisa, she said, but it was no honor, holy service. Long after the moon has risen, they sat together, talking. That night, when Khal Dragon came, Danny was waiting for him. He stood in the door of her tent and looked at her with surprise. She rose slowly and opened her sleeping sink and let them fall to the ground. This night we must go outside, my lord, she told him. For the Doraki believe that all things of importance in a man's life must be done beneath the open sky. Khal Dragon followed her out into the moonlight. The bear in his head twinkling softly. A few yards from her tent was a bed of soft grass, and it was there that Danny drew him down. When he tried to turn her over, she put a hand on his chest. No, she said, this night I will look on your face. There is no privacy in the heart of the Khalisa. Then he felt the eyes on her as she undressed him, heard the soft voice as she did. The thing that Dorian had told her to do, it was nothing to her. Was she not Khaleesi? His were the only eyes that mounted, and when she mounted him, she saw something there that she had never seen before. She rode him as fiercely as ever she had ridden her silver. And when the moment of his pleasure came, Khal Dragon called out her name. They were on the far side of the Doraki Sea when Jacqueline brushed the soft swell of Danny's stomach with her finger and said, Khaleesi, you are with child. I know, Danny told her. It was her 14th name day. Next, Bran in the yard below. Rickon ran with the wolf. Bran watched from his window seat. Wherever the boy went, Grey Wind was there first, looping ahead to cut him off, until Rickon saw him, scream in delight, and went panting off in another direction. Shaggy Dog ran at his heels, spying and spying if the other wolves came too close. His forearm dark until he was all black, and his eyes were green fire. Brown Summer came last. It was silver and smoke, with eyes of yellow gold that saw all there was to see. Smaller than the Grey Wind and more worried, Brown thought it was the smartest of the lighter. He could hear his brother's breathless laughter as Rickon dashed across the ant-packed earth on little baby legs. His eyes stormed. He wanted to be down there, laughing and running, angry at the thought. Brown knocked cool away the tears before they could fall. His 8th name day had come and gone. It was almost a man, grown now, too old to cry. It was just a laugh, he said bitterly, remembering the crown from his dream. I can fly, I cannot even run. Crowns are all liars. All nurse agreed from the chair where she sat down doing needlework. I know a story about a crown. I don't want any more stories, Brown snapped, his voice tauntlant. He had liked an old man and her stories once before, but it was different now. They left her with him all day now to watch over him and clean him and keep him from being lonely. But she just made it worse. I hate your stupid story. The old woman smiled at him toothlessly. My stories? No, my little lord, not mine. The stories are before me and after me, before you too. She was a very ugly old woman, Brown thought spitefully, shrunken and wrinkled, almost blind, too weak to climb stairs, with only a few wipes of white hair left to cover a mantle pink scale. No one really knew how old she was, but his father said she'd been called old now, even when he was a boy. She was the oldest person in Winterfell, for certain maybe the oldest person in the Seven Kingdoms. Now had come to the castle as a wet nurse for a Brandon Stark whose mother had died birthing him. He had been an older brother of Lord Rickard, Bran's grandfather, or perhaps a younger brother or a brother to Lord Rickard's father. Sometimes old Now told in one way and sometimes another. In all the stories, the little boy died at 3 of his summer shield. The old Now stayed on at Winterfell with her own children. She had lost both her sons to the war when King Robert won the throne, and her grandson was killed on the walls of Pick during Baron Greyjoy rebellion. Her daughter had long ago married and moved away and died. All that was left of her own blood was Adolf, the simplest minded giant who walked in the stable, but Udna just lived on and on, doing her needlework and telling her stories. I don't care whose stories they are. Brown told her, I hate them. He did not want stories and he did not want Udna. He wanted his mother and father. He wanted to go running with Summer looping beside him. He wanted to climb the broken towers and feed corns to the crown. He wanted to ride his pony again with his brother. He wanted it to be the way it had been before. I know a story about a boy who hated stories, Udna said with a stupid little smile, her needle moving all the while, clicking, 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 until Brown was ready to scream at her. It would never be the way it had been, he knew. The crown had trickled into flying, but when he woke up he was broken and the world was changed. They had all left him, his father and his mother, and his sister and even his bastard brother John. His father had promised he would ride a real horse to King's Landing, but they did go without him. Master Luwin had sent a dead after Lord Eddard with a message, and another to mother and a third to John on the wall. But there had been no answer. Oftentimes the birds are lost. Child, the master had told him, there is many a mile and many a arc between here and King's Landing. The message may not have reached them, yet to Brown it felt as if they had all died while he had slept. Or perhaps Brown had died, and they had forgotten him. Jory and Sir Roderick and Bayon Poole had gone too, and Alan and Owen and Fat Tom and the quarter of the guard. Only Rob and Baby Raycon were still here. And Rob was strange. It was Rob the Lord now, or trying to be. He wore a real sword and never smiled. His days were spent drilling the guard and practicing his sword play, making the yard ring with the sound of steel as Brown watched forlornly from his window. At night he closed himself with Master Luwin, talking of going over account book. Sometimes he would ride out with Alan Smalling and be gone for days at a time. Listening distance out forth whenever he was away more than a day. Raycon would cry and ask Brown if Rob was ever coming back, even when he was home at Winterfell. Rob the Lord seems to have more time for Alice Mullen and Theodore Greyjoy than he ever did for his brother. I could tell you the story about Brandon the Builder, Udna said. That was always your favorite. Thousands and thousands of years ago, Brandon the Builder had raised Winterfell, and some said the walls. Bran knew the story, but it had never been his favorite. Maybe one of the other Brandon had liked that story. Sometimes now we talk to him as if he were a Brandon, the baby she had nursed all those years ago, and sometimes she confused him with his uncle Brandon, who was killed by the Mad King before Bran was even born. She had lived so long. Mother had told him once that all the Brandon staff had become one person in her heart. That's not my favorite, he said. My favorite are the scary ones. He heard some sort of commotion outside and turned back to the window. Raycon was running across the yard towards the gatehouse. The wolves following him. The tower faced the wrong way from Brown to see what was happening. He smashed a fist on his teeth in frustration and felt nothing. Oh, my sweet summer child. Oh, now, said quickly. What do you know of fear? Fear is for the winter. My little lord, when the snow falls, 100 feet deep and the ice with wind comes howling out of the north. Fear is for the long night, when the sun hides its face for years at a time, and little children are born and live and die all in darkness, while the dire wolves grow guards hungry. And the white walkers move through the wood. You mean the others? Brown said curiously. The others would now agreed that thousands and thousands of years ago, a winter fell that was cold and hard and endless beyond all memories of man. There came a night that lasted a generation, and kings shivered and died in their castle, even as they swelled head in their wolves. Women smothered their children rather than see their stay, and cried and felt their tears freeze on their cheek. Her voice and her needle fell silently, and she glanced up at Brown with pale, firmly hard eyes. So, child, this is the sort of story you like. Well, Brown said reluctantly. Yes, only old now nodded. In that darkness, the others came for the first time. She said that her needle went clicking. They were cold things, dead things that hated iron and fire and the torch of the sun. And every creature with hot blood in its vein. They swept over old fast and cities and kingdoms, fell heroes and armies by the scores, riding their tails, dead horses, and leading hosts of the slain. All the sword of men could not stay there advanced, and even maidens and suckling babes found no pity in them. They hunted the maidens through frozen forests and fed their dead servants on the flesh of human children. Her voice had dropped very low, almost to a whisper, and Brown found himself leaning forward to listen. Now these were the days before the other came, and long before the woman fled across the narrow sea from the city of Rayon. And the 100 kingdoms of those times were kingdom of the first men, who had taken this land from the children of the forest. Yet, here and there in the fastness of the wood, the children still live in their wooden cities and allowed hills, and the face in the trees kept watch, so as cold and death filled the earth. The last heroes determined to seek out the children in the hopes that their ancient magic could win back what the armies of men had lost. He set out into the dead land with a sword in their secret cities. One by one his friend died, and his horses, and finally even his dog, and his sword froze so hard the blade snapped when he tried to use it. And the other smelled the hot blood in him, and came silent on his train, stacking in with packs of pins with spider big as bone horns. The door opened with a bags, and Brown axe leaped up into his mouth in a sudden fear. But it was only a Master Dowie, with Honda looming in the stairway behind him. Although the stable boy announced, as was his custom, smiling hugely at them all. Master Dowie was not smiling. We have visitor, he announced, and your presence is required, Brown. I am listening to a story now, Brown complained. Stories? Wait, my little lord, and when you come back to them, what they said they are old now said, visitors are not so patient, and oftentimes they bring stories of their own. Who is it? Brown asked Master Dowie. Tyrone Lannister and some men of the night watch with wood from your brothers, John Rowe, is meeting with them now. Order, will you head Brown down to the walls? Order, agreed happily. He ducked to get his great shaggy head under the door. Order was nearly 7 feet tall. Brandon heard. 7 feet tall, it was hard to believe that he was the same blood as old now. Brown wondered if he would strike up as small as his great grandmaster when he was old. It did not seem likely, even if Honda lives to be 1,000. Honda lifted Brown as easy as if he were a blade of hell and cradled him against His massive chest, his all smelled faintly of horses. But it was not a bad smell. His arms were thick with muscle and mounted with brown hair. Honda said again, Theo Greyjoy had once commented that Honda did not know much, but no one could doubt that he knew his name. Old Nan had cackled like a hen when Bran told her that, and confessed that Honda's real name was Wanda. No one knew where old Honda had come from. She said, but when he started saying it, they started calling him by it. It was the only word he had. They left Old Nan in the tower room with her needle and her memories. Oda fumed honestly as he cried Brown down the step and through the gallery, with Master Lowen following behind, hurrying to keep up with the stable boy. Long stride. Rob was seated in father's high seat, wearing regiment and wearing leathers and the stem face of Rob the Lord. Sir Greyjoy and Harley Smollett stood behind him. A dozen guardsmen lined the grey stone walls beneath tall narrow windows. In the center of the room, the dwarf stood with his servant and 4 strangers in the black of the night watch. Bran could sense the anger in the hall the moment that order carried him through the door. Any man of the night watch is welcome here at Winterfell for as long as he wishes to stay, Rob was saying with the voice of Rob the Lord. His sword was across his knee. It was still there for all the world to see. Even Bran knew what it meant to greet a guest with an unsheathed sword. Any man of the night watch, the dwarf repeated, but not me. Do I take your meaning, boy? Rob stood and pointed at the little man with his sword. I am the Lord here, while my mother and father are all away. Lannister, I am not your boy. If you are a lord, you might learn a law, courtesy. The little man replied, ignoring the sword points in his face. Your bastard brothers all your father grace. It would seem John Brown gasped out from other sides. The dwarf turned to look at him. So it is true. The boy lives. I could scarce believe it. You stark are out to kill. You Lannister had best remember that, Rob said, lowering his sword. Order, bring my brother here. Order said, and the trotted forward, smiling, and set Browns in the high seat of the stack. Yet the Lord of Winterfell had sat since the day when they called themselves the kings in the north. The seat was cold stone, polished smooth by countless buttons. The kid head of the direwolf snarled on the ends of its massive arms. Bran slapped them as he sat, his useless leg dangling. The great seat made him feel half a boy. Rob put a hand on his shoulder. You said you had business with Bran. He said, well, yes, he is. Lannister. Bran was uncomfortable and aware of Tyrion Lannister's eyes. One was black and one was green, and both were looking at him, studying him, weighing him. I am told you were quite the climber, Brown, the little man said at last. Tell me, how is it you happened to fall that day? I never, Brown insisted, he never fell. Never. The child does not remember anything of the fall, or the climb that came before it, said Master Lowen gently. Curious, said Tyrion Lannister, my brother is not here to answer questions. Lannister Robb said curtly, do your business and be on your way. I have a gift for you. The dwarf said to Bran, do you like to ride? Boy. Master Lowen came forward. My lord, the child has lost the issues of his leg. He cannot sit a horse. Nonsense, said Lannister. With the right horse and the right saddle, even a cripple can ride. The word was a knife through Bran's heart. He felt tears come unbidden to his eyes. I am not a cripple, then I am not a dwarf, the dwarf said, with a twist of his mouth. My father will rejoice to hear it. Greyjoy laughed. What sort of horse and saddle are you suggesting? Master Lowen asked. A smart horse, Lannister replied. The boy cannot use his leg to command the animal, so you must shape the horse to the rider, teach it to respond to the rein, so the voice. I would begin with an unbreaking yelling with no old training to be on land. He drew a roll of paper from his bed. Give this to your saddle. He will provide the rest. Master Lowen took the paper from the dwarf and, curious as a small grey square, he unrolled it, studied it. I see, you draw nicely. My lord, he said, yes, This ought to work. I should have thought of this myself. It came easier to me, master. It is not terribly unlike my own saddle. Will I truly be able to ride? Ron asked. He wanted to believe them, but he was afraid. Perhaps it was just another lie. The crown had promised him that he could fly. You will, the dwarf told him, and I swear to you, boy, on horseback you will be as tall as any of them. Robb Stark seems puzzled. Is this some strap? Lannister, what's Bran to you? Why should you want to help him? Your brother John asked it of me, and I have a tender spot in my heart for cripples and bastards and broken things. Tyrion Lannister placed a hand over his heart and groaned. The door to the yard flew open. Sunlight came streaming across the hall. As Rickon burst in, breathless, the dire wolves were with him. The boy stopped by the door, wide-eyed, but the wolves came on. Their eyes found Lannister, or perhaps they caught his scent. Summer began to grow fast, grey wind picked it up. They padded towards the little man, one from the right and one from the left. The wolves do not like your smell, Lannister, to your great joy, commented. Perhaps this is time I took my leave. Tyrion said. He took a step backward, and Shaggy Dog came out of the shadow behind him. Snarling, Lannister recalled, and the summer looked at him from the other side. He reeled away and unsteady on his feet, and Grey, with wind, snapped at his arm. Teeth rippled at his sleeve and tearing loose a grasp of cloth. No, Brown shouted from the high seat as Lannister men reached for their steel. Summer, yes, Summer, to me. The dire wolves heard the voice, glanced at Brown, and again at Lannister. He crept backward away from the little man and settled down below Brown's dangling feet. Robb had been holding his breath. He left it out with his side and called. Grey Wind. His dire wolf moved to him. Swift and silent, now there was only Shaggy Dog grumbling at the small man, his eye burning like green fire. Rickon called him. Brown shouted to his baby brother, and Rickon remembered himself and screamed, Home, Shaggy! Home now! The Black Wolf gave Lannister one final snap and bounded off to Rickon, who hugged with him tightly around the neck. Tyrion Lannister undid his scarf, mopped at his brow, and said in a flat voice, How interesting, are you well, my lord? Asked one of his men, his sword in hand. He glanced nervously at the direwolf as he spoke. My slave is torn and my breeches are unaccountably down, but nothing was harmed save my dignity. Even Robb looked shaken. The wolves, I don't know why they did that. No doubt they mistook me for dinner. Lannister bowed stiffly to Brown. I thank you for calling them up, young sir. I promise you they would have found me quite indigestible. And now I will be living truly. A moment, my lord, Master Lowen said. He moves to Robb and they handle close together. Whispering, Brown tried to hear what they were saying, but their voices were too low. Robb Stark finally shaded his word. I may have been hasty with you. He said, You have done Brown a kindness, and well. Robb compassed himself with an effort. The hospitality of Winterfell is yours if you wish. Lannister, spare me your first courtesy, boy. You do not love me, and you do not want me here. I saw an inn outside your walls in the winter time. I will find a bed there, and both of us will sleep easily. For a few copper, I may even find a comely wedge to warm these sheets for me. He spoke to one of the Black brothers, an old man with a twisted back and a tangled beard. Yoren will go south at daybreak. You'll find me on the road, no doubt. With that, he made his exit, struggled across the hall on his short legs, past Rickon and out the door. His men followed. The four of the night watch remained. Robb turned to them uncertainly. He said, I have room prepared, and you will find no lack of hot water to wash off the dust of you on the road. I hope you will honor us at table tonight. He spoke the word so awkwardly that even Brown took note. It was a speech he had learned, not word from the heart, that the Black brothers thanked him all the same. Summer followed them up the tower steps as Oda carried Brown back into his bed. Oda was asleep in her chair. Oda said, Oda, gather up his great grandmother and carried her up, snoring softly, while Brown lay thinking.
Rob had promised that he could feast with the night watch in the grates